And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 749. Team by team previews are done, so I'm back in the saddle getting you ready for the 2025 fantasy baseball season. And who best to get back going here in the month of March, draft season in full force, spring training in full force. That means we have a lineup tracker to talk about. That means we have a playing time guru to talk with, and he's back on Bench with Bubba. Hopefully, more to come this season. You can find him on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. The king is here, folks. Mike Kurland, how we doing, my friends?
The king is here, right? I like that.
Yeah.
I'm good, man. How's it going?
It's doing well, doing well. It's great to have you
Yeah.
back. We text once in a while. You're in the Discord. We get to chat there. We haven't got to see each other in quite some time, so it's nice to see you.
Is it though? I got the
We're,
face for
we're, we're
radio.
we're
You know
setting
what
the
they.
tone in the first minute of the show. Here we go.
I hear you. No, it's fun. It's fun to get back in the swing of things. Obviously, I took like pretty substantial break from my standards from content as a whole, and even continued like after spring training's over. I even wasn't sure if I was going to do this. I was like, no, this is like the one thing I've done for my inconsistency is well known, but like this is the one thing I've done for like 5 years straight, and I keep adding to it, playing with it, trying to implement new ideas as I learn how to do the things I want to do behind the scenes. So spring training was like, it's a good way. And honestly, it's gotten that creative, like the juices. And then I see other people doing stuff, and I'm like, I want to do these things too. So the idea is like, let me get through spring training. Still trying to. Some of it's automated, some of it's still like manual. And then I was telling you, I just want to take the year content wise to learn the stuff I want to learn, so I can try to get back to being like with something I have in mind by the end of the year, type of thing. So but yeah, we got spring training. Let's get to the stuff people want to hear about because
Yeah,
we
well,
have a lot I'm
looking
sure to
forward.
talk about.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you got to do. But let's talk about a little bit of the news. There's been a bunch of news. We'll talk about what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours here. Luis Eel, the major latch strain, will be shut down for 6 weeks. Then we'll have to ramp up. Clark Schmidt had a similar injury last year, was out till September 7th. So I think at best, we see Luis back in June at best by far. It's probably more July or so. With that being said, Mike, just to get your thoughts on this, seems like everyone's saying Marcus Stroman's the dude. We know Will Warren's throwing well. What are you kind of looking at in this fifth starter spot?
Well, I mean, I think we all want Will Warren, but I think the money's gonna talk here, and Stroman gets the first shot. If for nothing else, maybe they try to up. I don't know if they're not gonna be able to trade him. I don't think they're gonna be able to. Stroman obviously having no options might play a part as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to imagine it. It's hard to imagine Stroman getting passed on, but Will Warren should definitely get a shot. I want Will Warren, but I think like logically, my brain's like it's gonna be Stroman. And remember, Stroman's a starter. He told you that, and
Yes,
I,
yes.
maybe he's like somehow doing this. This is his fault.
It's all his Illuminati mission to get in
There
the
you go.
rotation. Yeah, I'm with you. It feels like it's Stroman. Money talks. We know that how that works. They wanted to trade him for a while. They need him to pitch to do so. It is funny. I'm looking at the NFBC OC ADP over the last 2 weeks. There's been 13 drafts. Stroman has not been drafted in one of those drafts, which I agree. I would not draft him at a 12. Will Warren's been drafted in three of them. He has an ADP at
Yeah,
356. People are taking the darts late. I think we're all in the same boats with you, Mike. We'd like to see Will Warren, who's having a really good spring, get that spot, but it's going to take all that. I think it might take a Clark Schmidt injury to make that happen.
which is very doable.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately,
Jose Quintana signed with the Milwaukee Brewers. A lot of people thought he'd re-sign with the Mets after their slew of injuries. Joins the Brewers, becomes the fifth man on the rotation. Kind of makes sense with Aaron Ashby hurt. We have DL Hall hurt. There was a need for a fifth starter. I don't think it does a ton when it comes to fantasy, except deeper formats. But do you have any thoughts on Quintana, who he's boring but serviceable?
and that's it. I think he'll be like a fringe two-start pitcher in 12. Like in OCs, you might like if you're desperate for like chasing wins type of thing because the volume should be there. Type of guy that you might get if you're chasing maybe some decent ratios for the week because of matchups. But other than that, even in 12s, he's probably gonna be a backup option to your backup option. Whereas in 15s, I feel like he's definitely more of the guy that has the upside to be a bench streamer at best, but like more than likely you take him for the two-start week, you ride a hot wave, you drop him, pick him back up throughout the year type of guy.
Yep, 100% with you on that one. All right, big blow to the Atlanta Braves. It seems like it's a year after year trend now since he joined Atlanta. Sean Murphy will start the season on the IL, out 4 to 6 weeks. Got hit by a pitch in the ribs, broke some ribs. So that's always a great thing. They're not going to start Chadwick Trump. He's a backup, strictly a backup. So it's either sign someone or it's Drake Baldwin season. Are you in on Drake Baldwin right now?
I mean, so I looked yesterday. I think I have two or three DC shares of Baldwin. But I don't think. I think the team. I don't remember. Was it Mark Bowden or somebody that was Bowen, whatever his name is, that was talking about? I think his tweet was the initial tweet was about the injury, and then about how Drake Baldwin is like going to get to catch sail the next day or probably today, I guess. And then that he would be the favorite to take it. But if the injury is like only going to linger 1 to 2 weeks into the season, they might not do that because they rather like they might just get by with the vets to bridge the gap until Murphy comes back. But what are they going to? I don't know what they're going to do with Baldwin regardless. Like he doesn't need to be in the minors. But they're in a weird situation. Could they just go straight 50-50 split? Either way, Murphy scares me. But I'd be hesitant to assume Baldwin gets much run. It might be worth a stab at like in your late rounds of Fab Leagues type of thing, but I wouldn't make him a priority. I don't know. I'm scared because now that I say that, Murphy's gonna have another setback or another injury. It's just what he does. But
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is he does it year in and year out, and this year at least his ADP is low. Or in previous years, you still had to pay for it, so it didn't hopefully sting people too bad. But yeah, it's just a trend over. Like he had that breakout year where he played almost every game at Oakland, gets traded, and it's just kind of been downhill since then. So I'm kind of with you on this one. Like I'd love to see Drake Baldwin be there, but I also see the point of okay, they're not going to play him just for a few weeks to just send him back to AAA as well. So that does make sense actually, and I don't think I've heard that talked about as much. So I think this is one of those where they sign some just like dude that used to be a decent starter for like maybe something like I'm totally skipping on Yasmani Grandal or something like that. Just like
Grandal had a sneaky second half. I was
that's
surprised. I don't know how he caught my
him for like
attention.
$3 million or something, and just like maybe Trump all of a sudden gets taken away, and Grandal's the backup when Murphy comes back or something.
If only they had a guy like Travis d'Arnaud or something, right?
If only.
If only they never traded Contreras, actually. But
King William.
If they never trade Contreras, does he turn out to be as good as he became? Because I'm pretty sure the Brewers were a big help in his success as development as a catcher. So
getting to play every day as well. So
yeah,
that helped too.
Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, the back to this one, Baldwin. Like I said, obviously, like right now, let's talk OCs because that's 12 team. That's the most relevant. Probably a lot of OCs happening right now before main event season. I would take them in the reserve round if I want to just speculate on the upside of like a catcher. Like say I waited on my C2 and I just want to take an upside shot. I think he's a reserve round guy, like early reserve round guy. That's the earliest I would probably take him right now. But with the understanding of like come the first Fab period, if we're getting reports that he's not going to make the team or doesn't make the team, easy cut type of thing. But that's where I'm at, like high end side of like where I'm picking them, I guess, right now.
Yep, I'm with you there as well. I just want to let it on the records. I was not the one that brought up William Contreras in this episode. That might be the first for a Bench with Bubba show. So I just wanted that on the records. Last bit of news here, and we'll talk probably about the massive fallout with the White Sox outfield when we get to the tracker to see what's been going on there. But I wanted to mention Andrew Benintendi's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured hand after getting hit by a pitch. I guess the biggest question I have for you is he had that crazy year last year. All of a sudden, he hit for power. Average dropped. So people were like, okay, I'll take him late. We love the floor play, yada, yada, yada. In like a deep format, you're in a main event. You maybe someone's still doing a DC. Does Benintendi still fall? Like, is he worth a dart late knowing he might still play like 4.5 months of the season?
In a DC, I'd still take him just because he's aiming now. Realistically, he said he was aiming for opening day because he did get injured. Lucky for him, for what it's worth, he got injured like with about a month before the start of the season, right? So that right there gives you like a potential, like, hey, like maybe there's a chance that he makes opening day because 4 weeks put him on the short end of his recovery. Realistically, he could still be ready by the first month of the season, like by the middle or the end of it. So I think in the DC he's still there, but he was always that like for me anyway. Like I viewed Benintendi more as like in a 15, like in a Fab League, like a main event or so. Somebody like as I prep for mine, he would have been the guy like, well, most everyday at bats, top three in the lineup. Like he would be one of those maybe fifth outfielder types, fringe like for like early reserve round picks. If I needed some, like if I wanted to take a shot on a guy who just has some streaming potential, some like maybe potential stick as a fifth outfielder in a deeper format. So now he's kind of a guy that I'm just not going to bother with. And when I just don't think he's worth the stash. And It depends on. I guess it depends on what news we get about the injury. If Benintendi is trending upwards, I would consider stashing him, especially if it's like a 2-week stash. But even then, I just don't know how much of a difference maker and how much potential he has. So is he worth a stash at all in 15? It's a discussion to have, but it's just really hard to say. He's like that fringe guy that if it's more than 2 weeks, it's really not worth it type of thing. But even 2 weeks is pushing it because he's really almost replaced. He's a little above replacement value, I'd say most weeks.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask because like you are much more in the 15 world than me, but I even understand like one of my biggest gripes of why I like 12s is I like being able to find waiver wire guys. In a 15, you can't. And
Yes, you can.
Benintendi, you can, but you know what I'm trying to
I
say. Like
refuse to accept that.
you you
I
dig
enjoy
deeper
it.
than I'm willing to dig. Let's put it that way. Yeah,
I
you are
enjoy
one of the
that. Yes.
you're one of the sickos,
Yes.
like Toby and Phil and all these guys that love going down to these. Look who I can get for $3, which wouldn't even be considered in a 12 type
Yeah.
conversation. But Benintendi in a 15 is still better than a lot of the options on the waiver wire. That's where I was like, this is kind of a guy. If he falls in ADP, might be worth the stash for a couple of weeks. All things considered.
If only I could actually have the success of Phil and Toby, so I could be like, I don't mind being in the same conversation with them in terms of like my prep or my weekly like in depth like of like who's playing and this. Like, I can get guys getting a guy for like under $5 in a main event that goes off and has like a 2 home run week is like one of the best feelings. I love that feeling. I chase that feeling every week because and a lot of times that guy like there's been times where I'm like one of 3 guys to pick up a player in the main and it's a really cool feeling, but it's like maybe and more times than not it didn't work out because realistically, there's a reason why only 3 people out of the whole thing picked this player up, right? But like when you hit on that guy or something, or if you're a week early on like the big ad, that's the stuff you play for because it just makes you feel good because it makes you reminds you your process is in place. So again, I like being in that. I like being in the same. I'm always grateful to be in that little grouping of names. But let's be honest, I need that. I need the results to be like that for me to really feel like it because that's they make good money. I don't.
Yes, they do. And for those that are new to a Bubba and Kurland show, we go down rabbit holes a lot. So be prepared.
Yes.
I'm just letting people know it's been a little while. So,
Uh-huh.
but I did want to comment though one
Overdue.
thing, especially like working with you in the past, like doing GT and other things, and just in the text threads and everything, and even with Ryan now doing 15s and Toby in 15s. One and Ben in 15. I should give everybody the credit. One thing that I really do appreciate is doing my 12s, but still communicating with you guys. It will open my eyes to certain streams. Like I remember like one week you were all over Yastrzemski because he's like, oh, he's got like 5 or 6 games with righties. And so I streamed him in a 12 for $1. And he had like 2 homers that week or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you're talking about, it's like those minor things that in a 12, like most people wouldn't look at, a Yaz or so on, and somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they stand out in certain things. And so
And
the 15 prep still does help a 12 is what I'm trying to get at.
and it took me a while to apply that appropriately. So there's a guy like Yaz might have been like a $20 player in a main event a couple years ago, just because like okay, there's been some consistency there. He's playing more, moving up in the lineup. But that same $20 player, either he'll be $20 the following week in OC because the OCs usually lag behind a week too, because that guy is such a deep player in the week he becomes relevant. He usually doesn't make he barely added or he's $1 or 2. But that was my big thing. Was like my problem was taking that $20 Yastrzemski and I'm just throwing a number out there and applying that to an OC where I'm like, crap. If I think he's $20 in a main, I would put him the same price as an OC and be the only one bidding on him, which always happens anyway. You know how that works. Like there's always weird weeks of bidding in OCs. But so I've learned like I usually make those guys $1 or 2. And yeah, that's my favorite thing is to be on like enter a Friday, a player moves up the order for like 2 games and you catch on to that and I'm over here like, dang, how many people are noticing this? How much more money should I bid on? Should I add another couple dollars because he's batting top 5 now instead of bottom of the order? And even if he's in a platoon, he's still getting more at bats now per game. Well, and this is where my brain goes, obviously, and I'm getting excited thinking about it because we're getting close to that time of the year. But it's that's where it's like that's where I like to catch those players, and that's where it's like I try to reel it in. All right, let me like my $500 bid might turn to a $7 bid, and next thing you know, I'm still the only person bidding on him in OC for sure. So it's like that's where it's hard to reel that in because you get excited because you're like, you start wondering how many people catches, and then you take a look at some of these waiver wire lists, and people aren't even throwing this guy's name on there, and it's like, man, am I just over? Then I start thinking, did I get something good, or am I overthinking this? Am I the only person on them for a reason, or is it just not common? Is it just so? It's such a mind mess, man. It's awesome.
Fab is wild. It's an art form and a
I miss
messy
it.
one at that. It's like
I'm
finger
ready.
painting sometimes, and that's the hardest part of playing 15s and 12s. Like you're talking about, I don't know how to change the price point. Like you're learning it as you go, but there's never a perfect science to it, and that's what makes it tricky as well. All right, let's get to it. Spring training lineups, and we can have some fun with this. Do you want me to share the screen, or do you want to just chit chat? I don't care either
Either
way.
way, you can
Okay.
do what you want.
All right.
You can share the screen. I'm gonna look at it on my other screen here.
Yeah.
I'm fancy at those
Well, that's
couple monitors. You know.
yeah. I'll share it, but I'll probably be still looking at things as well. But if Mike, why don't you let everybody know kind of what to expect, I guess, when we're looking at this.
Well, so the lineup tracker, it's really so I really dumbed it down this year in a good way. There's a page for player trends where you can it's a search function I created where you can but you have to this is where I your better half in Bloomfield. Shout out to him. I stole how he did it. I was like, hey man, I see what you're doing here. You're cool. You don't mind if I still how you're doing these, right? And he obviously doesn't care because it's not like it's the only way to do it. I just didn't know that until I talked to him really. But so basically, right, the players you see on the main screen are the players I just put up there just to put up there one day. But if you actually make your own copy of this or download this into an Excel file, you can utilize the search function for yourself. So if like you're just curious about like player versus player comps like on the same team and stuff, or if you just want to look somebody up, it'll pull them from the player trend tab that has every single player that's made a start. At least I think it does, and it's and any notes I put into it and all that. So it's like a kind of a quick reference sheet. But if you don't want to download it and all that, because you have to download that every single time for that to update, which I found that annoying. And I guess it's the same thing with all these other sheets and Google Sheets. It's just the way it is.
Yeah,
you have to download it every single time you want to use it. So it's like I would honestly recommend once a week is probably good enough. Like at the end of the week, first thing in the morning or like later in the evening when I finally get the update in, you can download it and then you'll get my most recent notes on any player you look up. And so I thought the search function was just a good, quick way to help people. Otherwise, you could just go, or you could do the old school way, which is I still do it this way as I'm entering it, is under the player trends tab. It's all this, it's every single player, and then Control F.
Yep.
Control
That's
F.
all I do. I Control F it and go, and because that way you don't have to download it every time. Correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that so I wanted to provide both options. Like there was if you like say coming up to the end of spring and you're like how many more lineups do you really need by like March 20th, right? Like do you really need the last 6? No. So maybe that's when you download it. You know what I mean? Like so I just wanted to give the option there. It was actually a really simple thing to bring up and make. But otherwise I have it with every single player I have notes on. It's all in one place so you can Control F. I think I mentioned that in the instructions. Like if you don't want to do that, just Control F it. And then it has the game started, what positions, how many times they start each position, any notes I bring up. I did add today a tab for people to that way you can search the date. So the last update like notes, I put the date next to it. So if you want the most relevant stuff, you just sort by date, I guess, and you can get the date of you can get all the notes from like the most relevant date. Assuming that's how it would work. I haven't tried messing with it. I haven't tried filtering it out. I don't care enough to mess with it. I just did that because somebody asked for it. I was like, all right, I can do that real quick. But yeah, so it's just one way. It has like it's in ABC alphabetical order by team, and then positional order. The way I guess alphabetical order by position. Either way, again, Control F is your best friend on there. And then of course the basic stuff of I just make sure I get every single lineup for every single team in here. So if you want to double check my work, which I always recommend you do, I'm not perfect because a lot of this still isn't automated like I wish it was. You can just go team by team, and every single lineup from every single day is going to be there. So. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's free. It's free. It's free and it's on my my Twitter X profile. So it's pinned to the top, the link for it. So
yep. Yeah. Everybody should be checking it out. I've used it a few times writing up articles, especially I do the AL West PT tomorrow for HQ. It dropped Tuesday. My newest one just dropped actually. And when I write that article, like when I'm thinking of like position battles or guys that might get a chance, we'll bring some of them up on the show. I went straight to the sheet to see how often they played for that example, and who might be playing when so and so moves to like left field, like Jose Altuve, things like that stand out as something worth monitoring. And this page makes it very simple to see all of that. All right, we're gonna go team by team. Some teams might not be that important. Some might just be something to keep an eye on as this spring training goes on. Like Mike said, in another week or two, I have a much better idea. I will be honest, some teams are actually putting out some pretty legit lineups early on. I'm kind of shocked to see once in a while. So that kind of helps a little bit. We'll see how legit that continues to stay, but we'll go from there. So let's start with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mike, yeah, we know there's going to be the potential platoon, like Grichuk's banged up now, but We got potential platoons in that regard with the outfield there. Some are hoping Adrian Del Castillo gets some run. Anything standing out to you with this team? Because to me, it comes down to like the Lourdes Gurriel, who should play every day. We got Gritchick and a couple guys there. And then what do they do with ADC?
Yeah, so I don't. This one's been tough because of with Thomas and McCarthy. I think I think McCarthy earned a regular role in this team. I don't think it would be like I don't think he's going to platoon because they already talk about Pavin Smith platoon like you said mentioned with Gritchick. So I think as long as Gritchick's okay, those two are gonna platoon for DH. That's kind of already been said by the team. We see a lot of Gurriel batting top half the order again, and this lineup outside of Carroll and Marte will typically get like jumbled around based on like they'll ride hot hands and stuff. So right now though, I think I think McCarthy is going to play pretty regularly, and it was interesting that with Carroll banged up right now, he's day to day was the update last I saw.
Yes.
They played like they threw out a lineup that was pretty like the top half was like all regulars yesterday, and McCarthy batted second. I don't know if that would stick, but that's something like I could see them going McCarthy towards the top of the lineup with an injury if they want to keep like a speed guy at the top. So that was the thing that caught my attention. Like maybe keep an eye on who bats second while Carroll's out in case Carroll does miss time. And McCarthy was the first one to get that chance. Otherwise, yeah, it's this lineup last year this team used to go like two separate lineups for which all spring up until final week. This year it's been a little more like a little more regulars in there at a given time, and I think Adrian Del Castillo is obviously on the outside looking in. They've been kind of about like talking about that almost all off season.
Yep.
I'm just it's weird because I feel like last year there was a lot more platoon potential, and this year is a lot less.
It is a lot less for the D-backs, that is for sure. We'll keep an eye on that one, obviously, and see how things play out. But yeah, that lineup they came out with on Sunday or on Monday, sorry, is almost what you would expect. Like literally, Gabby could go to catcher. You'd have McCarthy go to right field and Carroll come in or whatever. Like it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, there's a couple of them over the last week, like since the 228 just above the 3-3. Like there's a lot of them. Like if you look at the top five, there's a lot of similarities through the top fives of like all the lineups, and that way, and so you just start taking them and you can kind of piece them together and realize Gurriel probably slots into like the 3 or 4 range. Suarez about 5 or 6, McCarthy 6 or 7. Like you can make it work based on just kind of like
what I'm
the top
noticing here?
3 are probably be Marte, Carroll, Naylor.
What's interesting to me is the 3 left-handed pitching games. Pavin Smith played first base in all 3 of them.
That is weird.
that just stood out to me right now. Going, huh? Like, are they going to sit? I doubt they sit Naylor versus lefties, but if they do, does Pavin get this? Like, out of all the guys on the roster, is it Pavin Smith?
It looks like it's just if you look at the way it alternates, it's Smith, Naylor, Smith, Naylor, Smith, Naylor.
That's something I want to see going forward, though. That's interesting.
Naylor. So I honestly, if you just happen, it's literally it looks like for like at least
because even on 3-2 against the righty, if it goes back and forth, you're right.
It's been flip flopping. It just happened to land that way. It's really funny though.
That is interesting. It stood out to me in a big way.
Something I've been putting more emphasis on, at least what I'm looking at more now, is the away lineups, because I don't think I've paid much of attention to that, but like I know I've seen you mention it and others, but the away lineups, usually the starters, like the big names, don't travel for the away games.
Yep.
So you look at the away lineups, it might be a way of determining who's losing a battle or who's losing. I mean, there's some regular. Like, I think we had Bregman travel with the regulars to try to set, like, in a way of try to set an example. I'm really surprised Bregman's like that good. Like all the stuff about him has always been negative, I feel like, and to see him being such a good influence on the clubhouse has been really interesting.
Yep.
Especially the younger guys. But then you have like today on the Reds away team, Stevenson traveled, and I found that really weird. Not that I'm worried about Stevenson at all. But he's you would think of all positions, the catcher definitely won't travel because that's the most taxing position. And now why travel when you don't need to? But I guess obviously there's weird little things like that. I'm not worried about Stevenson, but I do try to see, like, when you look at these away teams, it's usually the backups. It's usually the B lineup. So like when you look at the Padres today, Tirso, your boy Tirso, is on the A squad with a very full lineup. I haven't uploaded it yet today, but
Great to see.
Yeah, if you look at, he's batting ninth, which again, that's like Merrill last year was batting at the bottom lineup,
Yeah.
and but it was with like it had Hayward in it, it had pretty much, and it was a variety. It was again, it was with all the projected starters, with the right field spot being kind of the one up in the air where Tirso could be the guy. And I guess obviously I'm getting ahead of myself for San Diego, but I've been watching that one. He's been in a few of those lineups and all that, and to see him in that lineup specifically with pretty much every other starter was like, okay, this is the first time where I'm like, this like, where I feel a little more confident in like it could possibly happen. But he has nothing. He has nothing left to prove in the minors and all that. So
Yep.
I don't know why. Why does it feel less? Why are people seemingly less confident in him breaking camp? It seems like in the public outlook is less confidence in him breaking camp than Merrill, who was like 20 years old last year breaking camp. So I don't understand why people are concerned, or where the like why isn't there, where's the hype at? Is it just not as big of a prospect name, I guess?
I guess you don't have to preach it to me. I guess it's just, with him, it's just Merrill's 20, so he's like skyrocketing maybe, where Tirso kind of just went through the levels and did very well, but age-wise and everything, he's like
I'm
expected to be
guessing there's
like
less pedigree, and
yes.
you and I don't know prospects like this. So I'm sure there's probably some prospect guy listening. Dude, Tirso's like half the prospect what Merrill was. I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. I'm not trying to argue that, but I thought Tirso, like, wasn't he the minor league player of the year last year or something like that? Like he
He got
wasn't
some
bad.
kind of, I don't know if it was that per se, maybe it was, but I know he's gotten some love. I'll say that, Mike. He's
Yeah.
gotten his awards. So we'll get to the Padres in a minute. Let's go to the we're just gonna go alphabetical here. Let's go to the A's. And this is a team that's been throwing out some pretty regular lineups, it feels like. I know they have some platoon situations as we look at their roster in general, but as a whole, we've seen a lot of Law Dog, a lot of Rooker, like that lineup we saw on the second with Butler, Rooker, Blade, Andahar might be questionable, but Soderstrom catching, Soderstrom will go to first, so on and so forth. But you can piece it together. Even the lineup they had on Monday looks actually pretty close to something we could see sometime this season, at least the top half of it. So any takeaways when you're looking at the A's thus far? As there's like maybe half the lineup's kind of locked down, the rest is going to be a heavy platoon situation.
Yeah, I thought that one of the bigger takeaways was when they were talking, and they started doing this with Soderstrom, giving him a chance to like play some catcher, and he came up as a catcher. So when I saw that, they did, I think, back-to-back games, back-to-back starts of his, and then the quote came out about how they're thinking that the idea of him being the backup catcher because it allows them to have more options off the bench. That's almost like your hunt. He might be what you hope Hunter Goodman. You might have picked the wrong Hunter Goodman this year. Soderstrom could easily be that Hunter Goodman guy this year. Sorry,
100%.
Bubba.
No, you're right. Well, I've been off of Goodman for a while now. Once I started seeing some other tea leaves dropping in Colorado,
Yeah,
I kind of stayed away from that.
I just think the comp. I think that's the fair comp. Like Soderstrom's the
It's a
guy
very
that's
good comp, yeah.
like the guy where Soderstrom's going. He could easily be what you were hoping, or at least initially. I'll say initially because obviously before things happen, like before the stalling signing and all that. But where what you initially expected Hunter Goodman to be, I don't think anybody expected Soderstrom to get much catching reps. Like at least if he was going to get 10, it might have taken all year type of thing. Now there's a chance he comes out of the first couple of months with those 10. If he enters the year as the backup, you're looking at a guy who's going to probably get catch eligibility 3-4 weeks at worst.
Yep.
So that was one of my bigger takeaways. Other than that, though, like you said, the top half, it's going to be Larry Butts, Rooker, Blade, Bangaliers. I think Jacob Wilson bats toward the bottom, but that's just me.
Too. I think so too.
I think there's too much slap hitterness there. I don't think there's enough there in the bat to. And if you look at I think it's 228. There's a lot of the regulars are in there with Geloff, Pareda, Wilson at the bottom three, and obviously if Pareda is the backup catcher, you'll see him bat down there a lot too. Seth Brown will be towards the middle. Andujar will be in and out, more likely to be on the weak side of the platoon.
I figured he'd platoon with Seth Brown, maybe even.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of the platoon that I would expect as well. But Andujar, when he hit the Athletics pissed me off last year because they were the type of team that they didn't have good players and it didn't matter. They had some good players, but they would platoon guys that we didn't think should get platoon. They would have other guys get full run when they shouldn't deserve it. It was the weirdest. And it was really hard. At one point, it was I gave up trying to understand their playing time because you'd have Andujar play 5 out of 7, then the next week he'll play 3 out of 7. And platoon didn't really matter. And then it was back in one. And it was, so there's a lot of that. And I don't think there'll be as much of those games being played this year in a good way, but I do think guys like Andujar, Seth Brown, Urshela, obviously, I think those are the guys that are you have to be most concerned about the playing time. And Soderstrom might lose. I know they could easily platoon him with someone too, because That's just he's a lefty, and they like to play those platoon games. Who would they who would they platoon with
Yeah,
is tough to say.
that's a
But
big question. They don't really have that in-house option, it
does
feels like.
CJ Alexander make the team? Because I think I believe he's a righty. I have to double check that, but he would be like he's the guy getting a lot of the first base run right now. Like other than
Nick Kurtz.
yeah, Nick Hertz would be like if Nick Hertz comes up, he's coming up as full-time first baseman. So yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, if it's not Kurt, CJ Alexander's like the only other guy getting first base reps outside of Seth Brown, Soderstrom, and Kurtz. So I think Alexander's a right, and the only reason why I mention that is because if Alexander's a righty and they decide that they want to have that platoon back, Alexander's also played all over the field this spring. He is he bats lefty, so that wouldn't work. So yeah, so the more you look at it,
first baseman, that's pretty good.
So the more you look at it, it's really Soderstrom probably should get plenty of run. I mean, I think Andrew Hart played first base in the past, right? He hasn't played at all this. Oh, Urshela has.
Urshela has, yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that there's ways for people like Soderstrom to lose bats against lefties. So we shouldn't rule that out, especially if they keep like we expect to have Estuary Ruiz in there, right? So Ruiz is going to play against lefties. They can shift guys around to play. Like they can shift Gio Urshela to first base to open up a spot in the outfield, and somebody goes to third base, and they'll find a way to screw. I'm telling you, the Athletics are going to do this. They're going to find a way to screw things up for somebody. That's just what they do. They mess with people too much. Oh yeah, Luis Urias would probably play third base.
I was thinking Luis Urias would be the guy I'd be worried about, honestly.
For third base. Well, for third base, move Urshela to first, and then move Ruiz to the outfield, putting Soderstrom on the bench against lefties. So it's one of those things where it sounds like a lot, but it's really not that much of it sounds like oh, that sounds like I'm reaching. I feel like I'm not. I feel like that's pretty realistic. Of an exactly.
And I'm not saying they're going to do it by any means, but
I would honestly go out on a limb and just I would expect it until proven otherwise type of thing. Personally,
it's fair. All right, let's go to the Atlanta Braves. We already talked catching situation earlier in the show. This is the team that will be without Acuna probably for the first month of the season, so that's one angle to play out. But for the most part, I think the Braves, we know what to expect from the Braves lineup. Is there anything that stood out to you here? Because, again, I just said it, but last year this team pretty much ran out the same lineup every day when healthy.
Even in spring, they did the same thing, right? So you start looking at these lineups. Now that Profar has come back, the one on March 1st was pretty much an opening day lineup. You can argue, and it was against a lefty, so it definitely makes sense why it fell out that way with Profar leading off, and then Harris and Albies fall. Albies batting sixth against lefties is weird to me. I thought they would still move him back up to like second and bump everybody down one because Albies crushes lefties.
Just look at the lineup though, that's just loaded.
No, I know, but in the past,
I agree. Albies versus lefties, I agree, 100%.
But then against righties, you would expect that lineup from with Profar leading off, Riley. I think at the end of the day, I think Profar is leading off. I'm curious to see if they. I was a little not surprised. I kind of expected it with Albies, but I guess not seeing Albies get moved up against a lefty was surprising to me because moving Albies down against righties. We've seen them do that last couple of years, especially after slow starts and whatnot. So. But yeah, Harris batting, that puts Harris in a spot where, people thought maybe Harris could lead off against righties because of no Acuna thing. But so maybe if you had that expectation, that would be the other surprise. And I'm saying surprise more of like an air quotes way because I'm not surprised that they are batting Profar lead off, especially after going out of their way to get them and paying them decently for considering what the Braves pay people. It's actually was it 3 for 45 or something like that.
It was a lot for them, yes, that's for sure.
The Braves don't the Braves are known Olsen was an expensive contract, but it wasn't even that bad considering the Braves don't do deals I feel like I don't remember last time I've done a good short a short-term deal like this where it was a decent payment of I don't know, I can't remember last time I did this. So seeing him lead off doesn't surprise me, I guess, at the end of the day. It'll be interesting to see if they keep obviously if Profar's hitting, do they put Acuna just ahead of him and leave Profar batting second and bump everyone down? That would be interesting to see. We'll see. I guess we'll find that out soon enough too, probably by the end of the first month. But yeah,
no, it'll get going soon. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not too. I guess the biggest takeaway would be Profar leading off where Albies is hitting because again, I think most would have expected Albies towards the top. So right now as we're talking, teams have slowly been sending guys to AAA camp, so rosters are getting shorter. You're going to see more and more set lineups in the next week or so. It feels like so. We'll have a good idea in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore Orioles, this is a team that can go platoon crazy if they want to. And it's going to be grain of salt with some of these lineups because over the weekend, Gunner's been sitting and Westberg's been sitting and O'Neill's been sick. There's been so many things with Baltimore where it's been tough to like lock in their lineup. I think we have an idea of what their opening day lineup should be, but it comes down to like, is Cedric Mullins going to play every day? Is he going to platoon? What happens if Jackson Holiday? There's a million things that could take place in Baltimore, which makes them quite frustrating, all things considered, even though we expect, a handful of them to play pretty regularly.
So it's weird with Mullins. Mullins hasn't batted lower than third, I think, in any lineup. And these are some lineups that are including I think like the 227 lineup where it was Gunnar, Rutschman, said Mullins, O'Neill,
lineup.
O'Hearn, Mountcastle. That lineup has a lot of regulars in it, and he was batting third. So I'm like, and then the other one on the 25th, which was also kind of like the top half was all regulars. So it makes me think that maybe Mullins. I mean, I know I'm not looking at lefty righty splits right now. I think that gets over. I used to think that was more telling, but I think it's more overblown, especially in spring when guys are just getting reps. And if anything, guys are
every other day and stuff. Yeah.
I would say, and not to mention, they're also just going to, even if it's a lefty on lefty, they want those guys to get those reps. I still think Cedric Mullins is probably going to end up platooning at the end of the day because they have obviously Gary Sanchez. We know what he's going to do. He's going to play every day against lefties. That's just wait. He's going to be the backup. What was the? Can't remember the backup catcher there last year. He's going to be that role though.
I'm totally blanking on it.
Yeah,
as well.
he was because he was rock solid. There's times where like they had two lefties over a weekend. You could start them and like, wow, I can't believe I can't think of his name. And I know there's people yelling at us that are like that know the name too, but it doesn't matter. What I'm getting at is Gary Sanchez is going to have a very legitimate role against lefties, and then obviously backup catching as a
James
whole.
McCann.
McCann, thank you.
Yes, I was going to bug me for a while. Yes.
Unfortunately, I always think of Wieters when I think of catchers for the like. I was like, it's definitely not Matt Wieters, but I don't know why that's the name that came to mind either because that's been a while. But so yeah, either way. So I think Laureano's the weak side platoon guy. So, but I do think Mullins might be sneaky batting top third in this lineup if these early indications suggest anything. And
yeah, my trouble with Mullins is like I like him a lot. Projections like Mullins a lot. I guess it comes down to
I don't know if they do.
That's what it is. Like, and like that still might have some 15 team legs because you can play the schedule, but does it have 12 team legs? That's where it's like it gets real tricky. I don't know if it's got if you believe the projections, that final stat line's pretty sweet, but you got to do a lot of trusting in there.
I'm scared. I haven't taken him once, and he's a guy I do have some FOMO on, but I am concerned about the playing time. And on top of that, the leash won't be long at the top. We've seen them drop Mullins down in the lineup. We've seen them mess with his playing time. They have guys that they talk about Hairsted getting a relevant role, and they don't have room for him as it is. So I think they're going to do a lot of rotating in and out of guys anyway. I think Mullins is safe against righties, absolutely, to start the year, but he could also be batting seventh against them in like 2 or 3 weeks once the season starts if he's not doing well. So that's you just got to keep that stuff in mind when you're with Mullins. I do agree. I think he's better in 15s. I think 12s it can become more of a headache than it's probably worth. But yeah, I think the lineup as a whole is pretty.
I do love spring training when Ryan O'Hearn's actually getting reps in the outfield. It says everything about spring training in a nutshell.
I just don't understand why Ryan O'Hearn is getting any relevant at bats at all. But anyway,
on this roster, he shouldn't be.
On this roster, I think he's a good real life player. Yes.
Yes, I'm with you. And this will be one of those teams to look back on in a week or so when we chat again to see because they're supposed to get Gunnar and company back towards the end of the week and really see how the lineup looks as well. All right, let's head to Boston, where Rafael Devers is supposed to come back this week, and that still has not happened yet. So that's fun.
Did you see the report? I think it was today where they talked about how they pushed back his debut because of his shoulders, or
needs more time. Shoulders still not ready yet. Needs more time.
That's scary.
That doesn't make me feel great if you have a draft coming up. I have no shares so far, and I wasn't that concerned about it, but I'm starting to get concerned about it. Let's put it that way.
I took a few like what were max picks at the time, like late 40s or mid 40s in DCs, like early DC season when he started falling a little bit. I took a couple. I haven't since, and I won't until we see that. Like even if he's on the field, I don't know if I'm going to take him at cost this year because I wasn't so out of him. Like, but if I see him back, at least it's one of those things that, all right, cool. I got my early shares. I don't need any more. That's kind of where I'm at with them right now with Devers.
That's totally fair as well. So let's talk Boston here outside of Devers. They've had a lot of moving parts, obviously. They have Alex Bregman in camp. Looks like he's pretty much playing third base because no Devers is back. Is anything standing out to you right now? I know they're trying to get Christian Campbell involved. He hasn't really made it happen. Mayer's getting his at bats. We have Roman Anthony getting at bats. Makasaki Yoshida just returned over the weekend. So I think it's been hard to get a real solid gauge on what's going on just yet.
So I saw something, I think it was today even, or I heard something, maybe it was a podcast. I don't know. I thought somebody was mentioning Yoshida, or I saw, or I guess I might have read it. I don't remember. And I hate not being able to give credit because it's good. It's a good little tidbit, but something about Yoshida, if he can't play the outfield by the end of camp, he might start on the IL because I think the idea is to, because they've already talked about, what's his face? Devers starting the year as the DH to ease him in, so they can't have both DHing. And I think that's another path, and that's why Campbell's played the outfield. I believe he might be out there again today. I think it's been 3 straight starts that he's made that he's been in the outfield. Yes, today he's in the outfield again. So I think that might be part of the plan. As Campbell makes the team either as a second baseman or outfielder starting the year, if they hold true to the Yoshida and Devers conversation, like, so that's really kind of what I'm watching here, is to see, A, is Campbell gonna break camp? B, if he does break camp, is it as a second baseman or outfielder? And C, if if he breaks camp as a second baseman or outfielder, do they really go through with putting Yoshida on the IL until he can get back and healthy because they want him in the outfield? Because I think they don't want to keep the. I think they've been vocal about making sure the DH as a whole there in Boston is like available. I don't think they want any set DH. I think they're willing to bypass the set DH thing for Devers because the Devers bat is just that good. So it's either, I think the only time they would go for a full time DH would be for Devers, or they don't want a full time DH, because I think they like the idea of getting guys rest there and stuff like that. So if Campbell's going to the outfield, though, I think Grissom has the job at second base. That
With
would
Devers
be,
out.
yeah, with Devers out. Yes, I think
Yep.
Grissom would be the short term gainer at second base. But Willie Abreu's due back any day now, so like, why
That's
would
what I'm saying.
Campbell? So that's what.
There's a lot of moving parts in Boston still.
So if okay, let's just assume Willier's healthy.
Okay.
The Yoshida thing's real. Like, they're gonna start him on the IL so he can return and play the outfield. Campbell, I would honestly, unless Campbell has a really awful rest of spring, I think it's Campbell's job at second to lose. I don't think they want to start Vaughn over Campbell. They've been I feel like Boston's been very upfront about what they want, and they want Campbell
Yep.
to break camp. Like,
I
so
agree.
I do think it's like, I've taken Campbell. I took him in my last OC at 288. Like, he fell. That's as far as he's been. Like, that's usually where he was going DCs basically. So for him to fall that late in that OC, I was
Yeah.
happy to take him.
He's got 296 right now over the last 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm okay there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay taking, because if he doesn't break camp, you just drop him, and there's plenty on the waiver wire. And that's why I like my early OCs, because you can get take your shots, and if something doesn't work, you cut them for somebody who's like, there's plenty of usable options in OCs. So that's where I'm at with him. I think that's a good price for him. I would take my shot on him, but that's, I don't want to. I'm not. But if he starts moving up draft boards again, I don't know, man. Like, I guess, and he probably will shoot up towards the end of March if he's like, yeah, because you'll get news by then if he's breaking camp or not. But if you're drafting early, I would definitely get my early shares now, with the idea of I'm probably going to end up dropping him if he doesn't break camp. That's Campbell.
Sure.
Campbell, yeah.
That makes sense. All right, let's go to the Chicago Cubs on this one. Another team that I like their lineup a lot, obviously, because they have one of the best outfielders in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some other questions, like Justin Turner might take at bats away from Michael Busch, which is an odd situation. Matt Shaw's been out with his oblique injury. He's supposed to maybe be back this weekend, but Gage Workman's been balling out, and he might get to go to Japan and give you a little couple game sample size there potentially. Anything standing out to you in Chicago besides, to me, it's the Turner situation screwing the whole thing up?
Well, so Turner, I've heard some people on podcasts mention Turner as backup third baseman. I never really bought it, and I don't think the
First baseman.
Cubs.
First baseman.
Well, no, they people thought third base.
Oh,
people
wow.
thought they brought him in. Well, people thought they brought him in right because it just so happened to coincide. As I just added the lineup for today too, as we're talking, because I wanted to make a point here that so
Matt Shaw is back.
Matt Shaw's back. This is his second start. He started also on 3-2. So and I did look, and he had 3 at bats in that game, so he played almost a full game. And now he's batting. And if you look at this lineup from today, Bubba, this is I tweeted out right before we started the show, or maybe like an hour ago.
That's a pretty legit lineup.
It's pretty much the opening day lineup. Because Birdie's in at second base. Well, John Birdie, he's not starting. Yes, I mean, Nico Harner's not ready, so I think Birdie is the favorite to start.
Yep. That could be your Japan lineup right there.
That's what I was getting at. And seeing Matt Shaw bat 5th was like very because I thought he was gonna bat like 7th, 6th, 7th. I thought they'd ease him in a little bit. Yeah, ease you in right into the middle of the lineup. Yep. But yeah, I think that this lineup could be very realistically the Japan lineup, especially if Matt Shaw is able to play full games in the next week. There's no reason why he wouldn't go to Japan, especially in Japan, I remember last year, and you can obviously tell me if I'm wrong here. I thought they like extended rosters for Japan, right? They let you bring a few extra players. So
That's a great question. I
I
feel like
think
they
they
might have done
did.
like 28. Yeah, I think
Yeah, like 30. I think it was something.
I
It wasn't
think
a lot.
you might be right. Yes, you
I
might
believe
definitely
they
be right on
could
that
be
one.
because if there is an emergency for a player, like you say, you had a player come down with an illness, they needed extra players to be able to fill it. So I think they extended rosters to like 30 or something weird like that, just to give you a few extras because you're going across the world. So if Matt Shaw, like, there's no reason like we saw because it was Graham Pauly or whatever, Pauly, which is Pauly Graham, right? Right, one of those two, Pauly Graham, right? I should
Graham
know this.
Paul,
He's a Marlin. Graham Pauly.
Graham
I
Pauly.
always flip flop the name. Don't mind me. Graham Pauly. He was the guy that everyone thought he was breaking camp because he traveled with them to Japan last year,
Yep,
but he didn't. He ended
that
up not
did not
playing.
happen. Yep.
So and that's so. But I think Matt Shaw. They've been talking. They almost like Campbell. They've been very vocal about wanting him to be the starting third baseman.
Oh, Matt Shaw is the dude if he's healthy.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
And it looks like Shaw is healthy. Like I said, it's the second start. I'm going to be, and it's in a real lineup. And this is a team that's going to start showing their hand because they're, especially when they leave, probably next week
Yep.
to travel, or like at some point next week, we end next week to travel to for that first series. This is a team we're going to, and this is a team that's been kind of trotting out A lineups a lot this year. So you can see like at least the top half of the lineups on a lot of these. But yeah, going back to Bush. So I think Shaw, as long as Shaw's healthy, I think he'll be ready for Japan. You'll see his ADP start climbing. I feel like people haven't quite, like, I just took him again in OC. I think I have 2 for 2 in OCs just because he keeps falling to a point, like after pick 200, where I'm like, it's a good time to take some upside here.
He's at 230. He's 231 over last week. So yeah, definitely a nice price.
I'm wondering where it lands. Probably closer to 150, 125.
About as high as 186 over last week.
Yeah, and then once if people see he's healthy and actually and say if he has a good series in Japan, forget about it. You know how, because if anybody gets a win or save or anything in Japan, they get drafted. So if he has like, I mean, it's if you're thinking possibly like optimistically, you hope he has a bad series in Japan because then his price should just fall because people are going to overreact to 2 games. I love it. I love that stuff, especially for those, because most leagues don't, with that you have to draft. Most leagues are probably being drafted after that, so you have to those stats going in.
You get your first look, your 2 game free sample, basically.
Free sample, yeah. And it's, so I don't know. I like the overreaction. So if he has a big series, the price is gonna be stupid. If he has a bad series, you might get a deal the rest of draft season. That's why I love it. I can't wait to see what happens there. So yeah, that's kind of, and you mentioned it. I thought Michael Bush deserved a shot. Like, I know he's not the best against lefties, but I believe last year, if I remember correctly,
it wasn't horrible by
no,
any
he was
means,
like, I think he was a league average hitter.
Yeah, he definitely was. Like I've written about this somewhere this year, and I'll pull it up right now. The splits on Michael Bush are not as bad as I think to need a Justin Turner to show up. Essentially, let's put it that way. Like last year alone, Bush hit 246 versus righties, 258 versus lefties. It just comes down, I believe, to the power department. Let me go to that scroll here. Yeah, he had a better BABIP too. Like slugging was 382 versus lefties, 452 versus righties, 124 ISO versus a 206. So still pretty much like he's a 103 WRC plus, above league average, like right around league average versus lefties, 122 versus righties. I don't think that's worth a platoon personally.
But they felt differently. So, and it could be short term. I mean, Turner could also get hurt. There's a lot of ways for Bush to get right back into a full time role, but that'd be the only thing. And even then, sometimes guys not facing lefties regularly, probably good for them. Like, something tells me Michael Bush wouldn't be
the Jock Peterson
great.
effect. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The Jock Peterson effect. Yeah.
Yeah. The heck, if you go look at O'Neal Cruz's splits, he was like not great against lefties. And if you look at him just against righties, it's almost like you want him playing against less lefties, because that batting average would actually not be such a concern if you face just righties. I think it was like a 260 hitter against righties last year. It was crazy. It was just like he was really good against righties, struggled against lefties, and the struggles against lefties are what brought his batting average down. And there's guys like that. Like, he's a great talent. Like, obviously O'Neal Cruz is not, I doubt he's in platoon much at all, but maybe a few extra days off against lefties would do him good, just for his overall line.
Yep, for sure. All right, Chicago White Sox. Do we need to even discuss the Chicago White Sox for fantasy relevance?
I mean,
I know I'm being half sarcastic, but at the same time, I'm kind of not.
Yeah, so Tauchman leading off against righties, I think, is legitimately going to stick. I know he's moved down the last few lineups, but I mean, Austin Slater, assuming he's healthy, I think I say he got hurt too. Yeah, assuming he's healthy, he's a guy that is at least on the weak side of a platoon, but could push for an everyday role with. He's one of the guys that can push for an everyday role with Ben. Excuse me, geez, with Benintendi out. But yeah, that's the only name, and that's like you're obviously your 15 teamers, your AL onlys. Slater, obviously Michael A. Taylor, another guy that was leading off against lefties. Like if you go look at all the lefty lineups, you see Michael A. Taylor at the top of 2 of them after he signed,
which made sense.
And then the third one, I think he got hurt before the third one, so he's another guy who's hurt. But a name to watch out. So they were talking about Colson Montgomery. I thought he was the favorite. He's also banged up. Like this whole team's like, but Chase Meadroth is like a guy that everyone keeps talking about, and I don't see why he can't break camp he's been playing shortstop too since as long as he has I haven't checked his numbers. I actually meant to look his numbers up today because he's a guy that could easily break camp with a strong spring, and he's having an awful start. But he just walks. The fact that he's walking more than he strikes out in spring is like that's such an encouraging sign. He also walked more than he struck out all of last year. It looks like, or no, sorry, at least in AAA last year. Yeah, all of last year. Okay, I can't read. So yeah, he's just a guy that plate discipline you love. That's the type of thing that you just love to see, and play discipline in younger guys. That we've seen it kind of translates well. Like it helps you translate to the big league level a little better. Maybe he's pressing right now, but I mean he can't be pressing too hard when he's walking 25% of the time. But he's getting but Meadroth's getting every single start at shortstop right now for the most part, like meaningful ones. And when I say meaningful ones, I mean like your A lineup, so to speak.
Yep.
So that's just something worth keeping an eye on there. If what's face Montgomery can't come back, doesn't come back and just take off with it, that Meadroth could be the guy that ends up with it. And that's kind of the only other relevant thing.
Yeah, I was going to mention with Meadroth, it was interesting because on my White Sox preview with Mike Carter, he's like, yeah, Meadroth's the guy I'll keep an eye on just because he's older than Montgomery, the way the White Sox operate. He wasn't bad in the minors. Like, he should get a spot. And then it looks like Montgomery was going to get the job until he got hurt. And now Meadroth's getting a chance to try to gain some playing time. We'll see how that all plays out, of course.
And that's usually, and that's all. It just comes down to can he like capitalize? And right now he's not. So I mean, again, but we're talking what 12 at bats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I already closed out the page, but small samples matter in spring because we also do have like 3 more weeks, so that small sample it'll still be small, but not as small.
It'll be relevant at least.
Yes, and obviously we'll also get news and other stuff too. But yes, I think the Meadroth Montgomery battle, so to speak, as long as Montgomery comes back, I think. But if he doesn't come back, I think Meadroth has a better chance, even with a bad spring, to still break camp because this team just has no reason not to let some of their young guys get a real shot at it. Oh, Miguel Vargas was kind of named the everyday third baseman. I thought that was kind of a big deal. Like he was like they came out and said that, and I think he's been batting. Like I know it's not like anything fancy, but Vargas was like, dude, we were all. I remember I was in on him very heavily. I was super in on him. He put on some muscle this offseason, and he's batted no lower than 4th in any lineup.
He's been pretty much cleanup his last like 3 lineups.
He's batted 4th or 3rd in every single spring lineup he's started in.
That's I think relevant, I'd say.
Because like Ross Resource has him 7th, and that's why you can't really blame Ross Resource for having him that low, especially because like right now the White Sox we don't know what a full lineup for the White Sox looks like. They're so bad. One thing I do know that I do disagree with Ross Resource on Gallo starting in left field and that's just for now because Gallo has made 5 starts and they've all been DH or first base, so not a single outfield rep. And I know he could play the outfield, but the fact they're not putting him out there, I'm curious as to why. When this team clearly needs outfield help,
because he can't play outfield anymore.
So probably. I'm guessing. I think he'd be more likely to play DH and then Lenin Sosa to second, Rojas to bench utility type. That would be my guess, but that's a tough one. So that's where I disagree. Only based off early, I'm basing my disagreement off of early trends that we're seeing. Obviously, that could change in a week. Like, that's why we probably should do this once a week or so, just to see if these trends are holding.
That is a good idea. All right, Cincinnati Reds, another team that has platoon written all over them for at least a good chunk of the lineups. You have Gavin Lux questions, you have CES questions, and much, much more with this roster. What has stood out to you thus far? Because, like I said, like you could even go to Austin Hayes and what he's doing in the outfield. There's a lot of ways to go here.
So with Cincinnati, I think it's really like it worked. The injury to Steer was kind of a big help because that clears up a good amount of the questions, right? Like Steer was stuck at DH. With DH open, you could rotate. You could keep Hayes in the outfield, right? Because now you have a DH spot where you could put Fraley at DH, and now that definitely guarantees Hayes sticking in the outfield without a doubt. You can put CES in DH and put what's his face at first base. You can DH
Candelario,
Lux.
yeah.
Lux has played third base 4 out of 6 starts, so I think third base. I think they want him to take the third base job, especially because they went out and traded him for him. So it makes sense that they would want him there.
I like that.
And I think it's really him and Candelario that have been playing third base most of spring. Lux, Candelario, Espinal's gotten some run there, obviously. But yeah, it's been I'd say it looks like just a quick look at it. I'm looking at Candelario had a couple starts, Lux has had 4. Marte's had a couple, obviously, because he's still third baseman. You know he's not going to break camp. CES had a start there, but Lux has been by far getting the most run there. And now with Steer out and likely starting on the IL, I have no reason to think Lux won't get a shot to start at third base, given the early trends and given the clear lane for him to take on that role. Like especially with the DH opening up for CES and Candelario to both fit in this lineup pretty regularly too.
Yep, I like that. Seeing CES get a lot of reps at first base over Candyman is also a plus because I do like to see him get there. But the Lux thing, that stands out big time to me. So that is great to see, and we'll see how things continue to unfold. It looks like Steer starts the year on the IL, and other things will take place in camp when they start. They got to let some of these guys go to figure things out as well. Cleveland Guardians. This is another team that last year had like a good top half of the lineup and then a lot of platoons. After that, we know we got Carlos Santana was brought in to likely take over from Manzardo. Manzardo's getting plenty of run as well this spring. I know Big Christmas, Junkinzi Noel. People didn't know how that platoon would potentially play out. Again, still speculating, but he's getting his normal run, I guess. What stands out to you with Cleveland?
So Juan Brito getting like reps at second base, which I think people were kind of expecting him to be the starter. If you look at where he's not playing all the time at second base, but he started 3 games there. See, this is where it gets weird because his starts have all come against lefties, but at second base anyway. But they've also come in lineups.
DHs versus righties. Like what in the world?
And then if you look at him playing second base against lefties, which I don't care where he's playing, it's just those are the lineups that are also full of like a lot of starters too. So that's the promising part. Like take away the lefty aspect, he's starting with a lot of the starters. But then yeah, otherwise it's DH against a righty and you're right, DHing twice against righties. So yeah, I guess he's a starter. Like I feel like we need more. We need to be told something. Because I think Rocchio is definitely a starter, probably gonna bat the bottom of the lineup. Manzardo was batting, I think, second all through the final week of the season and all through the playoffs. But he hasn't batted higher than third this spring. So I think he's gonna be a 3 through 5 hole hitter with Santana being there with him as well. And I could see, any given day, like a flip flop, whatever. Santana being a switch hitter allows for that. But Lane Thomas, I think Will Brennan now gets a shot because what's his face? The Chase the Lauder. I don't know if you saw right before we started recording.
8 to 12 weeks hernia surgery.
Yeah, yes. That explains why he hasn't made a start this spring. I was wondering, like, what the heck's going on? I saw some batting practice stuff of him like a week ago, and he never got into a game, and that would probably explain it. The dude can't stay healthy. It's usually a foot thing, so at least this was like more of a freak injury than anything. Like, not that it matters. I thought he would break camp. He was good enough.
Most people did. This was like now or never. It felt like for Chase, and might be never at this point. So.
I have a couple early shares.
Yeah, well, the Brito thing I like because like Jake Halesker was on the Guardians preview and he was talking about pretty good. And it made me dig into his minor league profile and dude's power, got some speed. Like there's a lot to like there.
There was some numbers there for sure
if they let him run with it. And like over the last week in OCs, I should say, dude hasn't even been drafted. And I think that's a guy if you just kind of punt a position or you want to play the game in a 12. I think there's a lot of upside there, especially if he gets that job.
And the other thing that caught my attention was first base reps. There's been 3 players that played first base this spring for this team across 1, 2, 6, not 10 lineups, maybe 11. I haven't looked at today's. There's been 3 players that have played first base: Carlos Santana, Kyle Manzardo, and some guy named Micah Prize. So Big Christmas hasn't even touched first base this year. So I'm wondering if he's not even part of the thought process there, which would suggest that weak side platoon is looking more and more likely, unless he beats out Will Brennan or something.
Yeah, that's a shame. So yeah, he's probably stuck in the outfield or a DH situation, which Man, all that pop to be in a platoon is a bummer, to say the least.
Yeah.
All right, let's head to Colorado, where the Rockies are going to Rocky more often than not. But I think it's safe to say, like, okay, we got Jones and Toglia are going to be out there. But there are questions on who's playing second base. How's that going to play out between Tyro and Amador? It feels like Tyro gets it, but still a lot of Amador love out there. We also have the questions of like Jordan Beck. Does he get to start? You went deep on Monday, so that got me happy because I've been taking Beck shares late. I think there's some potential there. What are you noticing with the Rockies here? Because besides my joke, Rockies are going to Rocky. They and Zach Veen's been very popular as well, I should say.
So this might be the first time we see the Rockies have a semi-consistent lineup. Yeah, I don't, I don't want to be too overly. I don't want to be confident in this, right? But when you look at lineups, like let's see, which one was it? There was one recently that caught my attention.
Is it 3-2? No,
Probably like 3-2, 3-1. I think 3-1, 3-1 might be the
Yeah,
one
3-1.
actually.
3-1. I'm looking
If
at.
you look at
Looks pretty
3-1, it's Doyle, McMahon, Tovar batting third. Like, okay, sure, that's your 3-spot hitter. Wasn't expecting that, but okay, whatever. Bryant, Tyro batting fifth, and I think Tyro bats fifth or sixth in almost every lineup he's in. So I'm like, Tyro's gonna have a sneaky good lineup spot for RBIs. Okay. Toglia batting sixth, which I expected them to. And maybe they'll flip flop. Obviously, Chris Bryant's gonna get plenty of rest too.
Yeah, Chris Bryant won't be there by May, so it's okay.
But seeing Jordan Beck in those lineups really makes me like a lot happier too, because like this team, Beck is the type of guy. Now they did come out and say Beck was like supposed to be the front runner for a right field spot. So seeing him in that lineup on 3-1 is really reassuring because that looks like a starting lineup. Outside, and obviously we want to see Drew Romo or Hunter Goodman, anybody but Stallings. But realistically, I think Stallings is going to end up being the starting catcher.
Agreed.
So yeah, I think they're doing the right thing for once when it comes to like Beck, and I think they've already come out and said they want to put Amador, like let Amador get some run in the minors too, because injury and stuff kind of prevented him from getting a lot of seasoning last year. So I think Tyro surprisingly could hit towards the middle of the lineup, and
which be crazy to think about. Like I'm all for it. I'm all for it for fantasy, but that's wild to think about.
Well, Estrada stole a base this spring. He's already up to like half as many as last year.
Goodness gracious! Don't look now, folks.
Oh,
his ADP's up to 301. He's gone as high as 251 in the last week.
I took him early in a DC. I bought in, like I drank the juice and I drafted him like way too early in a DC, and then realized I could still wait on him. I have a couple shares though, and but I have a couple shares, and I haven't taken him in an OC, but I'm not opposed to like when these first round of like Fab goes around, like he's on my list if he's even available. I honestly don't think he's available probably, but if he is available, I would definitely add him. And I have no problem taking him at the end of OCs, but like he's firmly in the mix for like a main event middle infield spot for me. Like as long as he but I'm not. He's not like a must get target. But if I fall back on speed and like him and Durbin, like if Durbin's not gonna break camp, which there's that we'll get to them shortly, and there's a rumor of that kind of going around.
There's a rumor of that, unfortunately. Yes.
So, but he could be he won't run nearly as much as Durbin, but it's just that profile of like, all right, I need a speedy middle infield type. That's where I and we're one season removed from back-to-back 14 home runs, 20 stolen base seasons with at least 260 batting average.
You don't have to preach to me on that one.
He might not hit 14 in that cavernous ballpark, but if he hits 10 home runs, but the BABIP is better, he's on base more, steals 20 plus bases, and you're getting him at pick 300. Like I have a hard time. I'm just you and I. Like Estrada, I think you were in on him before I was. I was really in on him last year. Of course, the year he sucks, but I'm ready to be.
So it's your fault. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine because I'm ready to be hurt again because the price is worth like there's it's baked into the price at this point.
Yes, 100% agree.
Estrada. So I have some shares. He's not a must get target, but he's one of those guys. He's one of the reasons why I like to wait on second base.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, like him, Brito. Like there's some interesting second base guys that are worth taking.
In India, I've been pretty vocal about being
love India as well. That's why every draft I start going more and more into and I love Durbin. Obviously, we'll get to that. There's a lot more second basemen. I'm like, I'll just take my chances late on some of these guys, see where things go. All right, let's go to Detroit here, where obviously things are changing. Matt Vierling is going to start the season on the IL. Pretty much Parker Meadows is going to start the season on the IL, barring some medical miracle going forward. So I think we also believe Winfield Perez gets a boost from this. Obviously, he led off on 227 on one of their split squad games, but it really hasn't done much since then. He's in the middle of the order, I guess.
third
What are you
usually.
seeing here in Detroit overall?
I see a lack of a true leadoff hitter.
That's what I'm
Like
noticing looking around. Yeah.
there was a report today from a
Well,
guy at the Athletic.
Trey Sweeney's got 3 of the last 4.
Yeah, he's been leading off a lot, and and
Yeah.
starting at shortstop, and I think he's leading off again today. But
Yep.
this morning, an Athletic piece dropped that talked about how, which doesn't surprise me, Baez weak side of a platoon, most expensive weak side platoon player ever.
Yes.
But so weak side of a platoon, but not they aren't talking about Sweeney. They're talking about possibly starting Sweeney in the minors and letting McKinstry
Ridiculous.
and Baez be the platoon to start the year at shortstop. And I looked into Sweeney a little more. That made me open my eyes a little bit to him. I was like, and I realized, yeah, the guy has a swing and miss issue, but you rather him not try to figure it out with the big league club versus like when your options are McKinstry and Baez. Like, okay, like so
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on that. It's hard to believe it's hard to believe that report when you're seeing Sweeney lead off pretty much every start he's made ever since Parker Meadows went down. Like it seems like that's who's become, and he's doing it in like lineups full of starters. So that's where I'm like, why would they be treating Sweeney like this? Are they just getting him as many reps as possible to see what he does? Do they believe he could be the leadoff guy? I feel like Cole Keith wouldn't be a bad leadoff option, honestly.
I figured that would be an option for sure, and it really hasn't seemed to be yet, which is surprising.
And but maybe that's because maybe they're like, Torres kind of got a late start, so Torres let off the other day. Maybe he's just getting some reps, and maybe they are getting truly a full look. Like, hey, Sweeney, take all these reps, see what you could do, and see if you can make the team. Like, that could be what's been going on here with Sweeney. Because Sweeney initially, I'm like, maybe he's just moving up the lineup. Maybe they want to give him a real look at shortstop. But then that report comes out today that there's a chance he starts out in the minors, and I'm
That'd
like,
be so bad.
so that's one of those things where I was like, I updated the notes on this thing just for people to know, like, hey, like this is a report going around, but like obviously you can't, there's no absolutes, and Sweeney goes so late that it's really even in 15s he's barely being drafted. Like I bet not barely. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. He's being drafted in DCs, but like, I bet you if you look at standalone leagues, he's probably not being drafted.
I'd be shocked if he's getting that drafted in fab leagues for sure. DCs, he's like a 3rd or 4th shortstop.
Yeah,
As you're
exactly.
drafting. So, yeah.
And this will put some cold water because the leading off thing is definitely notable because he's led off what 1, 2, 4, 5 games.
It's like also notable. It's also notable though because like Javi Baez finally made his spring debut a couple starts ago, so he hadn't really been out there.
And Sweeney played shortstop otherwise when Baez can't. Baez played shortstop yesterday. Sweeney still led off at DH. So, and Sweeney's in the lineup again today, leading off for what it's worth. So we're talking a lot of leadoff reps. So in my head, I'm like, wow, maybe they're giving him a good look at leadoff. But now that it could also just make sense that they're giving him a good look or some reps because they want to see if he could run with the job. So I don't know if there's a leadoff guy here, but Colt Keith, he batted second a couple lineups ago. Let's see what he's batting today. I have it up here somewhere. Let's see, Colt. He's batting 4th again. I don't think they want. I just don't know what they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna move him up.
Oh, the powerhouse Colt Keith. That's what they're going for there in the middle of the order. So we'll see.
I mean, maybe it changes. It's still early because they don't have a true. They just don't have a true guy there. They don't have a true leadoff guy.
They have a lot of questionable true things. That is 100% the problem.
Which is weird.
They have a lot of good talent, but it's just a team that we saw it in the postseason. They're going to platoon the heck out of it, and it's going to be annoying as hell for fantasy.
And what are they going to do with Torque? I don't know. I don't think he's.
They're trying to give him every chance this spring to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing. So McKinstry, if Sweeney goes down, McKinstry goes to shortstop. That opens up, and Kerry Carpenter's been playing almost exclusively outfield this spring, like no DH reps. So that could open up the DH for Torque.
That would make sense because it feels like they still don't want to give up on him, but it was so bad. It's like, dude, we can't have you up here right now. We're actually contending for like a playoff spot. This doesn't work at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, but they've also talked about. I think part of that same thing was Justin Henry Malloy also still vying for like a role on this team coming out of spring. Yep. And Torque obviously he has a home run this spring, but he also is batting 231 with a 2.8. His triple slash is typical Torque. I think it's like 800 at least. Oh, no, 747. I lied. I can't do math. So he's not really doing much with his limited opportunity so far. Still striking out 28% of the time. Like Torque isn't forcing their hand there, but at least if the McKinstry shortstop thing has legs to it, that DH spot is an open option for a Torque, for a Justin Henry Malloy, for whoever breaks out in this camp. So it might be worth watching to see, A, who's getting those reps, but B, who just stands out. What if there's like a random like, what if Ryan Creedler? I'm just picking a name from today's lineup.
Yeah.
What if Creedler goes on like he just one of those guys like what was Akil Badu was that guy in the spring a couple years ago? Just a guy that just takes off. If only they had a Gage Workman or something, you know.
That would be nice. That'd be nice. So we'll see where this plays out. But next time we talk about Detroit, I hope it's a little clearer because it's all over the board. Houston Astros, for the most part, it feels like it's pretty business as usual. Outside of a couple questions I have, obviously they flat out said Altuve is going to be our starting left fielder, which is bonkers to me that they're actually running away with this. Which I saw you tweet about it, and I was actually right before you tweet, like a little bit before you tweeted, I was looking at your tracker, and every time Altuve has been in left field, Brendan Rodgers has been at second base. That has been a common thread as well, because I was looking at a guy like Shea Whitcomb, who has played some second base. He's primarily played third base. And I remember before they brought Rodgers in, they were like, okay, well, Paredes can go to second, even if Altuve goes out there, did the whole circle dance. I think Whitcomb's very good, and I think he's better than Brendan Rodgers personally. But it looks like they're going to give Brendan Rodgers the gig. So what else stands out to you with Houston besides it looks like Altuve's in left and Rodgers is at second base?
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty much it. Altuve playing left field open. I agree with you though. I really obviously I don't believe Rodgers is worth not giving Whitcomb a shot, but I think Rodgers that's what they brought him in for, at least to see what he could do. Maybe could it be like I don't know if there's gonna be like if Rodgers is just gonna face lefties type of thing. Whitcomb is a righty.
I believe so.
I'm gonna look. I think so too, but
Yes.
yeah, he is. So that's why. And if you look at the spring, if you look at spring, Whitcomb's had 1 start at second and like 5 at third base or 4 at third base. So that tells you like they're not really prepping him for second.
Exactly. It surprised me when I saw that. I figured he'd get more run in second. But.
And then you have Dubon playing some second. Like Dubon actually started in second base like yesterday with Altuve in the outfield. So I feel like Dubon might even have a better shot at starting in second than Whitcomb at this point. But I think Dubon, I think they like having Dubon beat the utility guy. So I honestly I'd be surprised if they put him anywhere as a set guy other than for injury replacement. Zach DeZenzo, remember all the hype that was there?
Yes,
obviously, well, he's been playing outfield. He has been doing
a lot.
That.
He's getting a lot of outfield run. Just not sure it's going to equate to anything.
Well, I don't. They so Jacob Melton, I think they already reassigned because he hasn't been healthy.
God, he's so good too. I would love to see Melton play.
And maybe he'll be. Well, that's the thing. How good is McCormick and what's his face?
You got McCormick, you got Ben Gamble, you got Myers. Like it's not a good outfield.
So I feel like we've seen. The funny thing is we've seen McCormick and Myers both be good with an actual role in the past, but we haven't seen it in a while, or at least consistently. So it makes you wonder, like, do they have shorter leashes this year? We saw McCormick fall into a platoon last year. That could easily happen again this year if they decide they want to go that route. So there's just a lot of uncertainty in the outfield. But I think right now, I think that which lineup was it? It was the 3-2 lineup, the Altuve, Paredes, Jordan, Walker, that one.
That seems
obviously
pretty good.
They have I think those 4 are there. You put instead of Caratini, you put in Gainer, obviously. And then obviously you could go Rodgers will probably bat around 7th. Pena will probably bat 6th. And then you can fill out the bat Jake Myers 9th. Kind of like so that's why I'm like that one's more or less like you kind of fit the pieces there on that 3-2 lineup. So
we shall see. All right, Kansas City Royals, a team that to me it feels like we should have a pretty solid, like for a team that doesn't have like great players at every position, it feels like most are locked into their position, if that makes any sense. You got India. I know he'll go second or third. They've used him in the outfield, but it feels like India's at second, Witt's at short, McHale's at third, Vinny P at first, catcher you got Salvi, and in the outfield you got some sort of conglomeration out there. Between there's like 4 guys. I think they'll rotate. So what do you see in the spring that can tell me I'm wrong?
Yeah, I don't know if I trust Hunter Renfroe. Well, first off, has Hunter Renfroe been hurt? Because he hasn't been in a lineup since the 24th.
I have not reported anything. Not that I'm the end all be all, but I do stare at news like no.
Yes, I know you do. That's why I'm asking you.
I have not seen anything saying Renfroe's hurt, and this is. I was looking at his stats the other day, and I'm thinking, they're giving all these other guys chances, and it's not Renfroe, which is probably not the worst thing they can do because it's Renfroe. But it was surprised. I figured they paid him, they'd use him type thing.
Yeah, but I mean, what is he making? 7.5 million. He's not making a lot. A
This
lot
is
for
the
them.
Royals. This is the Royals.
A lot for them, but not a
Yes.
lot. And he hasn't been. He wasn't good last year. Like it's not
No,
like
he
he's.
wasn't.
It wasn't like he was crushing the ball at all. I mean, he had a 684 OPS against righties last year. Lefties, which are supposed to be what he's better against, a 702 OPS. WRC plus, roughly league average, like 95 and 91. Again, it split. So it's probably, overall, it's probably closer to like 90, 94 ish. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Either way. What I'm getting at is why is Hunter Renfroe guaranteed anything besides a weak side platoon role, if not a bench outfield role? That's why I'm like, I don't buy into him being an everyday guy. I think he's the type of guy that might play 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7 type of thing, because at least initially, because you have Massey getting outfield reps. I don't know how he's looking. I haven't read anything about it. India, same thing, getting outfield reps. I expect him to be in the infield, but he's getting those outfield reps. And they've even put Michael Garcia in the outfield. Yep. I think they have this flexibility. And I think Garcia played the outfield a couple years ago. I thought he did. Maybe I could be wrong. I feel like
they're trying to give Nick Prado a ton of run out there, which is
and they seem to love him for some reason. They've been talking about
Nick Prado.
He was
once a big time prospect. Then you get Vinny P to block the first base from him. So it's like, hey, we got to find a way. It's like it feels like it's this season where we really need to know if he's worth it or not. So let's do what we can to see what he got. Type thing.
I get it. I do. And to answer my own question, he did play outfield one time in 2024. I was like, I knew I seen him in the outfield. Yeah, one time. That's
one time. The fact you remembered one time. You remembered the one time, Mike.
Yeah,
I can't get you to I can't get you to focus for 30 seconds on certain things. You remember the one time you played the outfield.
He played the outfield. I knew he played the outfield, but it wasn't even a start. He just played. I was like, I don't know why I knew that. Anyway,
you are you. That's why.
That's the most random fact. He played one inning, I think, in the outfield. I don't know why I saw how I feel like I saw like, oh, he went to the outfield in a game, and for some reason that stuck with me. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so Michael Garcia, but he has the speed, and as long as he can play the position, he can play. Like, as long as he can play the outfield, he can play the outfield. Like as long, you know what I mean. Like they have options. So I think Hunter Renfroe might be the guy. And again, on top of that, Hunter Renfroe hasn't started a game since the 24th, and I haven't seen a thing. So and I know, and that's why I asked you, because I know you do your news updates like every other day for the Patreon. Yeah. So I know you're usually on top.
And
of
the
stuff.
Breakfast with Bubba podcast.
Well, sorry.
I wanted to promote it because I haven't said much about it lately.
Yes. It's a very similar. It's pretty much this what you did in season for Pitcher List. It's pretty that. Much. Yes. So I listened to that one, even though the ads like to be longer than the podcast.
I only do the ones. I don't put it in the middle anymore. I don't do it in the middle.
It's not your fault that the ads run forever. It's just the way it works. I know, and I just like to give you crap.
Fast forward button does miracles.
I know. I just like to give you crap. Yeah, it sucks when I'm actually busy like doing yard work and stuff, and I can't get to my phone, or like my phone's put down somewhere, and I'm like, oh, I hope you listen to this ad. And for some reason, it's targeted. It targets me in Spanish. I get Spanish ads, and I'm like, I don't speak Spanish.
Out here in Cali, I work in farming, so like it's half the time I'll get Spanish, half the time I get English. Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck's going on with the ads? So it's like not even good ads. It's ads that just anger me because I'm like, what is this racist BS that's going on here? What are they doing? Why do they assume what's going on? Why are they randomly assuming I'm because I'm like half Cuban? They think I can speak Spanish. What is this crap? Anyway,
figure it out, Mike.
I can't ever figure it out. I can't figure out life. I've been raw dogging life.
All right. Anything else on the Royals before we go down the bad rabbit hole here? No, let's go to the Angels. Let's just go to the Angels. We're skipping forward here.
Well, I guess can we just real quick on the so I guess obviously India leading off. That's great. We not surprised, but it's like for sure. It's a for sure thing. But like you said, I think Hunter Renfroe, and I think Isbell's the favorite to start in center field.
Yes, I agree.
I really like Weimer, but I don't think we're gonna. I don't know if he's gonna get a shot, even though he should, especially over Hunter Renfroe. Because I'm stuck on this whole Hunter Renfroe doesn't deserve to be on the team.
You are way stuck on this Hunter Renfroe.
Well, because he sucks. Like he's barely a big league regular right now. And I bet you if you ask Venancio and any other Royals fan, they would probably agree with me right now.
There you go. All right, let's head to the Angels here, where Taylor Ward's battling a knee injury. Rengifo's got a hamstring injury. Stop me if you've heard this before. It's not midseason. It's still spring training. But there's a lot of potential moving pieces because like Trout's going to play the outfield. Adele moves to center, it looks like. We're got to see who plays shortstop because every time I see a lineup, it seems like it's a different shortstop in rotation with this team. What are some of this? And I love Christian Moore. I have planted my flag there. And I think they do too. And they're trying to give him as much run as humanly possible. Not sure it'll matter, but what's your thoughts on the Angels where we do have a lot of moving around, but it kind of feels like it's organized chaos right now?
So yeah, the Angels and their injuries are popping up already. It's like already an issue. Moore's having like he's still striking out 30% of the time in spring so
Yeah.
far, small sample, but he's otherwise hitting decently well. The power hasn't shown up yet. But I'd be surprised if he broke camp at this point. Tim Anderson, they brought in Tim Anderson, they have Kingery. I'm not saying these guys are like gonna make camp or break camp as the starters, but or like even as bench but they're good quality bench pieces, right? Um and then you have Rengifo, who I think Ron Washington just hates him. I've been saying this since like last year. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, like
you've been
think
all over
Washington
that.
hates him. So he's hated for whatever reason, but but then I did read like remember when because Washington's always been really upfront about his lineups that he wants Rengifo batting towards the middle. So I'm guessing when I think middle, I think 4 through 6. And against righties, I would expect him batting around 6 because it's his weak side of his of what he's able to do usually production wise. So Rengifo could bat around 6, but when is he not guaranteed an everyday role? Because if he's not guaranteed, the only way Christian Moore breaks camp is as a starter at second base or third base. And
Yep.
what's Yohan Moncada's role?
That's the question right
And
there. That's where I've been looking.
and that's where I get tough. And I'm looking at him, but even JD Davis, and you're not seeing who's not
don't put that wicked voodoo in there.
You know who's not playing third base?
Who?
Christian Moore. So
Yeah,
like
true.
I don't. So are they? Rengifo has played third base this spring?
Yes.
So is the plan Moore at second, Rengifo at third, Moncada a utility guy off the bench? I mean, $5 million is really not a lot. That's easily a role
it
player.
almost feels like Moncada's the main third baseman, Moore's the main second baseman. Rengifo's going to play second, short, third, and outfield. Like he has his spring, he's going to be like a super utility.
But then that pisses me off because this is the first year I finally said, you know what, I'll take a couple shares,
Oh,
and now he won't even be an everyday guy.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of loving the mascot. It's a love-hate relationship.
I didn't say I love him. I was just.
We do. You will. You will.
I will.
Once you roster him and enjoy it. Trust me, you will.
While he's healthy, anyway. But center field, Joe Adell clearly getting every look he could possibly handle.
Taking every Joe Adell share I can right now.
So I backed off. I had a lot earlier on, and I started backing off just because I think he's going to play. But let's see. So
it's post 300 ADP, so I'm pretty excited about that gamble.
Oh, is he? Oh, yeah. I guess in 12s, I like him a lot more in 12s. You're right. It's the 15s I took a backseat on. Today he's playing shortstop too.
I could see the concern in 15s a little bit. Yeah.
Adele and just because it's Adele, Lars Newbar, Evan Carter, and not that I don't think Adele has better ceiling. I just think there's more safety in the other guys playing with higher floors on top of that. So it's like 2 out of the 3 boxes are checked for the other guys ahead of Joe Adele. In my opinion, like when I start looking at like how I want to form my teams, but there's some serious spike weeks there with Adele. But yeah, so Adele's playing center field again today. So initially it was like all Joe Adele, like every game was Joe Adele. And then you have like the last 3 or 4 games, they've alternated Odell and Mickey Moniak at center field. So I'm not sure what the plan is, honestly. I just know the 2 of them are like the guys.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about this last one, but I just want to throw a nugget out there. Someone I've written about recently, Matthew Lugo, is a guy to keep him in mind for the future. There just takes one injury for him to get some playing time in the outfield, and they're playing him quite a bit, especially towards the top of the order. So someone to remember. That's all I'm going to say.
Matthew Lugo. I mean, you mean this team, the Angels, that has injuries to every outfielder already?
That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah,
they want to trade Ward anyway, so that's my point. Just keep that.
How have they not traded him?
Like Prepis said it best. I know your good buddy Prepis.
I love Prepis. I love Prepis.
I know. On the Angels show, he mentioned like Ward is so cheap. He's got ARB years left. Like he could return a massive amount for the Angels, and a lot of teams could use. Like the Astros would love him right now, type thing. Mm-hmm. So Ward, I would imagine, gets traded at sometime this year. All right, the Dodgers. This team will annoy us to infinity and beyond throughout the season. So I'll just leave it blank, an open statement, because it's literally Betts is supposed to be back in the infield. Kim's supposed to start in the minor leagues. We'll see what happens there. They have so many veterans that are going to get a bunch of days off, so it's kind of hard to predict. A lot of their veterans just came back over the weekend, like last Friday. So what are you seeing in LA that you can actually be confident in, I guess?
I am watching the outfield utilization because if Kim, so the obvious thing is if Kim goes to the minors, that would put Edman probably at second base. Because if you look at all spring, Edman's played like center field once, I think, and second base like 5 times. So So it makes me wonder right there. First of all, yeah, in 6 starts, Edmonds played second base 5 out of 6. So I'm thinking Edmund gets a chance to play second base, moves up in every lineup he's been in for a lefty. He's batted top 3, which top 5 against lefty. I wouldn't be surprised if Edmund's a top 5 batter against a lefty for this team in general, because that's how he's better against lefties than righties. And against righties, yeah, he might slip to the bottom of the order, but I'll take the 7-8 hole hitter on this team who's going to play most A's, especially because of his defense. Especially when they talk about they want to rest Freeman, they want to rest Will Smith. Like they want these guys to rest. Edmonds going to move up on those days. Like Edmonds going to hit middle of the order more often than not. And then Max Muncy gets his injury once a year at least. There's always room for Edmund to move up. So Edmund's a guy that initially I was kind of out on. I was just like, too many. Like for me, it was like I don't want the guy at the bottom of the order. But I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think he's going to hit the bottom of the order much this year. And most of it's going to be because of injury and just the ability to move up because of days off and stuff against righties. So Edmund playing second was kind of my biggest takeaway so far this spring. And then that would open up center field. Do we is our boy Pages freed, or do they go with or do they screw with it and say, you know what, we're going to use one of our 18 old guys we brought back in Hernandez, Taylor, or does Outman have another shot at it? Because if you look at the center field reps, it's been Pages, Outman, Enrique, Edmund, Pages, Outman. So it's really been, honestly, if you go back, it's like majority Outman and Pages getting those looks in center field. So it looks like that could be the competition. Hernandez got 1 start so far there, but the thing is he doesn't need a whole lot of starts there to know how to play the position. But from the look of it is they want one of the, I guess Outman or Pages probably to take it and run with it if they're gonna go with one of those two as a center fielder out the gate. So that's how I'm just watching center field usage and those lineups that they're in and seeing if Edmund just keeps playing second base.
Yeah, that is an interesting take. I saw you tweeting about that, about the outfield situation the other day. So him moving to second base might give my Pages love some hope, and I'd be very, very happy about that. Your boys, the Miami Marlins, a team just full of juggernauts all over the place. They don't want to give Agustin Ramirez the proper dues he deserves. They're going to keep running out a couple of annoying veterans instead of like Davis and De Los Santos and some others. What are you catching so far this spring when it comes to a Marlins team that, outside of say like Otto Lopez, Norby, obviously Edwards and Jesus Sanchez, seems like there's a lot of moving parts?
Yeah, I have no idea. I really
Yeah.
don't. I think Jonah Bride first base is happening.
Yep.
But I think they seem to like Matt Mervis too. I haven't this is where I think stats might matter because I need to go look up the stats because I could see Matt Mervis at DH. I could see Jonah Bride playing first. Bride also played third base this spring. I think just yesterday. Yeah, he did play third base yesterday. So it's one of those things where Jonah Bride can play around the infield. Phil Santos was getting third base like reps before spring training game started, but he hasn't played third base in a game at least until through today, which is what, the 3rd of March. Something I noticed real quick, if you look at today's lineup for the Dodgers, it's a really strong opening day lineup, except for Chris Taylor at left field instead of Conforto, and then Pages is the starting center fielder, batting 9th in this lineup. So that's worth. It's Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Hernandez, Will Smith, Muncy, Edmund batting 7th at second base, Taylor batting 8th at left field, which is most likely going to move Contreras up or move Conforto up playing left field, and then Pages at center. That's optimistic for Pages, right?
Yeah, that is.
Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because that lineup was relevant. But yeah, back to Miami. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I care at this point. They're so bad. Like I do. Well,
They're
you know what?
very
You know what I
bad.
know? I do. I do see that. Like I see Jesus Sanchez playing some center field. So that doesn't even guarantee Derek Hill start, because I know Derek Hill was kind of a sleeper for people, but there's no guarantee because obviously you have Kyle Stowers there. You have Griffin Conine. Dane Myers is in the mix. Like they have a whole lot of just go away. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. And they haven't made it easy because it's not like they have a bunch of reporting on it. It's not like they have a bunch of like, well, these guys could be the favorites. Miami's a mess. I think Otto Lopez is a regular, which is worth mentioning. So if you need speed at second base, another late second baseman with speed, it's kind of a trend. There's a lot of that in drafts this year. I think Otto Lopez offers that. But the outfield's a mess. I can't get a good read on it because I don't know, because I don't know what the starting lineup is supposed to look like because this team doesn't have guys that are like clear starters, in my opinion.
No, they don't. They're a
That's the
a group of
problem.
maybe 4 A players, which is a mess.
Hey! It's bad. Yeah.
Tell
Well,
me, tell me I'm wrong.
you're you're Bubba. No,
What's that?
Jesus Sanchez is probably the only player that's like
And I love Jesus. I
he's probably
love
the
him.
only player. Well, Edwards would bat ninth on any other team basically, but I think he's actually like a decent MLB player. Like I think he's realistically like a real life could actually be on a good team batting ninth. But for the Marlins, he leads off because they don't have anybody else. But yeah, I have interesting guys like Mervis because I think Mervis is getting a lot of looks. I'd have to see. I look up his stat line real quick. But yeah, it was he was the guy that caught my attention too. Like because Dos Santos, I feel like is losing favor. I don't know, man. It's just that's a gut feel though. I'm not seeing. I just have a hard time. They
It seems like De Los Santos is getting the odd man out treatment. I'm with you on that. I've noticed that quite a bit. So,
but I
I
can't
think they
back
want
it
to
up.
get. I think they want to get some of these. I think they want to get some of these old guys to place they can trade them. That's what it feels like. I
But
don't know
didn't
who's going to
wasn't there
trade for Nolan
also
Bryan.
wasn't there also a report that said that the Marlins will be spending money to avoid a MLBPA thing like
They did say that, and
and they
when I
haven't.
did the D-backs preview with Bogman and Welsh, they said it perfectly. They said ship Jordan Montgomery to Miami because they need a pitcher because of
Yeah.
the injuries, and they need to take on money so they can take the contract, then just get rid of him after the year. So they cover two bases, give like a single A player back to Arizona. Everyone's happy.
And then you can also go that way. You can also go out and get what's his face from the Mets, the outfielder. Can't think of his name.
Starling Marte.
Starling Marte, another big contract that's going to be up soon. There's a lot of ways to go out and spend money, or they could do what I was like. Well, maybe they'll just bring back all the because like JD Martinez is a South Florida guy, like that's where he's from. Rizzo's a South Florida guy. You can just go out and get those guys on 1 year deals and just muddy up everything anyway. That because you need another first baseman.
It's already muddy, so why not?
Yeah, but make it just infuriate everybody and block everything with like these veterans you put on 1 year deals just to appease the MLBPA. Might as well at this point.
True.
And yeah, you just go that route. Kyle Gibson's out there. My boy David Robertson's never going to sign at this point, but he's out there for a team that needs bullpen help. It would make it for a team not only that needs bullpen help, but that could easily get something for him at the trade deadline. The fact they haven't gone out and said, "Hey, here's $7 or $8 million for a year," I don't understand that move for Robertson. That doesn't make sense to me.
Starts out with Kurland hating his team, and now he's going on a diatribe on how to fix it. All right, we're about halfway through, so let's get to the next grouping. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. So, what do you have on this one? While I get my dog to shut up.
I'm gonna try to keep this one simple. I don't think I think what we see is what we're gonna get. There's not a lot here in a good way. I think the only we're still just watching the third base situation because Caleb Durbin's been playing more second base lately. But there's been times where they have Caleb Durbin at second base, so they shift Ortiz back to third and play Trang at shortstop. Trang is he won the Platinum Glove at second. So do you want? I mean, he could glove shortstop just fine, but do you really want to move a guy that good that position out of it? So I think that's kind of the only question is like, so who's like, so I, but last year we were like, well, they traded for Joey Ortiz in the Corbin Burns trade. Oh, they're clearly going to play him. But remember, he wasn't an everyday guy at first. He played 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6. It was frustrating. And then the second half of the year, they started playing him every day. I'm wondering if Oliver Dunn. Oh, that was a 1 week fun one.
Don't buy back into that one, folks.
I wonder if Caleb Durbin's going to get the same treatment of like they're going to play him mostly regular, but not like every day. And then eventually he has to work his way into a regular everyday lineup, which it's annoying. But like we saw that just happen with Ortiz, like the same exact situation. They traded one of their biggest players, biggest name players, to turn around and do this, to turn around and possibly give it the Joey Ortiz 2.0 treatment. So it's just weird. It's weird that they do that, but we've seen it twice now. And this is a team that will play hot hands, and so that's really the main thing to watch for. Yeah, Ortiz gaining shortstop eligibility is going to happen more than likely pretty early in the season.
It feels like that March 1st lineup. If you put Durbin at third base, but it goes Churio, Yelich, Contreras, Mitchell, Hoskins, Turang, Ortiz, Frelick, and then you put Durbin at the bottom. That's like a pretty legit lineup.
Yeah, 3-1, the 3-1 lineup. Yeah, that was the one that caught my attention too. I thought that was like. Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty opening day looking right there. But that's if they want to put Durbin or Dunn, and who knows? And they could platoon for all I know. I just find it weird to platoon the guy or part-time play the guy that you went out and got for Devin Williams, but it's not the first time they've done this, so that's why I'm like, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I know Durbin's making it tough though. He had another home run on Monday, so he's
Well,
keeping it interesting for
yeah,
sure.
I've got a couple early shares. I could really use him. I could really use that speed, so I could really use like him winning that job. I'd be appreciative.
All right, let's go to the Minnesota Twins, who you've pointed out Matt Wallner seems to be a leadoff hitter these days, which is awesome to see.
Every
Uh,
start.
there's a few other players that are in the platoon situations, and Rocco Baldelli will torture us with these throughout the season. But what else have you noticed here besides Matt Wallner, leadoff hitter?
So Matt Wallner has led off every single start this season. Period. Like he's 6 for 6. I think today makes 6. I'd have to double check that, but I'm almost positive he's in the lineup today. And he is leading off. So yes, he makes 6, 6 for 6 leading off. So, but the thing when those lineups, when he's in a lineup, if you look at the top 5, it's the same every time. It's Wallner, Correa, Buxton,
That's
Larnach,
interesting.
Lewis. So we have
Jeffers is
consistency, guys.
almost every time. Almost, yeah. Wow.
Well, not yeah. Sorry, you're right. There was like one. I think there's one lineup.
Yeah.
It was it was
No,
the
you're good.
25 lineup. How dare I be off by one line? So
No,
fine.
I was saying that Jeffers is almost the 6th. Like it's almost the top 6 is the
Jeffers.
same every time.
I thought you were giving me a hard time about the one lineup. I was
Nope.
wrong because one lineup had
Nope.
like backups behind Wallner. Anyway,
Nope.
I missed that part. But anyway, so either way, so the top 5 has been really consistent. And I think today's lineup is also different. Go figure. But at the end of the day, so you're getting these guys, and I think Jeffers will slot 6, 7 most days behind it against righties because Jeffers crushes lefties. So this is your against righties lineup, I think, because against lefties, I think Larnach sits. I think Jeffers moves up. Julian's been playing first base, which I find interesting. So I guess maybe they have a plan for him to make the team. But at the same time, there's no spot for him if they really want to have Brooks Lee playing second base. If they really want to have Miranda playing most days. If they really want to have Ty France, who the last I checked was having a decent start to spring, if he's really part of the plans, I think the problem is you have all these guys in pseudo platoons. Like they're all going to play 4 out of 6, and that's where it gets aggravating. Like how do you get like Bader's going to play because Buxton rests regularly. So if Buxton's resting like playing 5 out of 7, Bader could fill those 2 in plus platoon with Larnach. That's how you get your platoons there with Bader. That's how you get Bader the decent playing time. You have Ty France playing most days and probably Miranda playing DH and stuff. Castro's going to move around as needed. Brooks Lee's not going to play every day, I don't think. It's going to be a pain in the I don't know if I'm not going to curse on this podcast. I'll be nice. But it's going to be a pain. And I think the only thing you know for sure is that Lewis will play most days, Buxton will play most days, and Cray will play most days, as well as obviously Jeffers and Castro. But the rest, like the other 4 spots, you'll have Larnach sitting against lefties most likely, Wallner sitting against lefties most likely, Brooks Lee playing in and out, France in and out, and you'll see Miranda, Bader, those guys kind of mixing in a lot.
Yeah, no, I get a lot of platooning because that's what we do in Minnesota. New York Mets, another team that I feel like we have a good idea on how the roster's overall going to shake out. But heck, Brett Beatty was playing second base on Tuesday while Jeff McNeil played left field, which has been kind of off the norm for this club. I want Acuna to play. Doesn't feel like that's going to happen to start the year. We shall see. So what are you noticing when you look at the New York Mets?
I think what you said, what you see is what we get. Although Nimmo might just, I mean, I know he's supposed to return to the lineup today, I think. So I have to see if he's actually starting because he's dealing with a knee thing ever since he returned to the lineup. But it was weird. Like yesterday, the report came out was like, yeah, just a little blurb from like Fantasy Pros or somebody was like Nimmo dealing with a knee injury, and if you click the link and actually read the article, yeah, he's been dealing with it and he's due back tomorrow. I'm like, well, that got me all like up and down with like, oh man, it's like because Nimmo's been a guy that I just been at cost. I've been kind of avoiding right now because the foot is already a concern. Then now you throw a knee in there. There's a lot of red flags here with Nimmo. So say Nimmo needs extra days off or Nimmo gets injured, then that would open up McNeil to the outfield and obviously Acuna or Beatty at second. And that's kind of what at this point you need an injury because otherwise this lineup's pretty set. Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Ventos. Winker's going to be a strong side platoon guy, probably with Marte. I think they've already said that. And then you have Alvarez catching, McNeil at second, and Siri playing mostly every day in center. Tyrone Taylor can also get in there as well. And Tyrone Taylor will be the 4th outfielder type with Marte. It's going to be a bit of a mess, but they'll all figure it out. I think McNeil will platoon type of thing too. I think McNeil won't be safe against lefties, and they have Tyrone Taylor and Marte, both of which hit lefties better. So.
Yep, a lot of moving parts in that team. Let's go to the Yankees. Another one that does Jason Dominguez at the top of the order. Jazz Chisholm's been leading off a lot. We finally got to see Aaron Judge in the lineup. Obviously, Giancarlo's DFA'd basically at this point in time, might as well. What are you seeing with this team? Because they haven't put that together like that full healthy roster just yet.
So, like you said, initially it was like the reports were Dominguez would get a shot. He got one leadoff appearance, and then Jazz has led off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight after that. And these are all lineups with Dominguez in them, basically, too. So
Yes.
Dominguez has kind of slipped. I think Dominguez, and I'm not surprised. And my initial, it's funny. So I was wrong. I initially was wrong. I was fading the Volpe leading off thing because Volpe stopped leading off like I think it was like May or June of like he stopped leading off most of last year. And then even into the playoffs, never batted above 6th, I think. So that was never in my mind. And I thought initially, I really did think it would be Jazz getting the first crack at it. And not because he's meant to be a leadoff hitter. I don't think Jazz is particularly a typical leadoff hitter in today's game. But he has the experience doing it, and he can succeed at it. He's not the best at it. He doesn't have a good on base skill set, but Jazz is the one getting those reps right now. And being in front of Judge, Bellinger, like Goldie, he'll see a lot of pitches to hit, and he is a bit of a free swinger, so he might not be on base a lot. I do wonder though if Chisholm leads off, will they still give him the same green light to run ahead of Judge and all that?
That's the interesting part. Yeah,
I didn't really think about that too much.
I would imagine so. You'd hope so. Why else would you have Jazz? But yeah, you never know.
So so we could see Dominguez hit as probably as low as 6, between 6 and 8th, 6 and 7. Volpe will be in that 6, 7, 8 range as well. No stand. Oh, the third base thing. Third base. I was watching this one. We've been seeing a lot of Oswald Peraza at third base in the main lineups. Like when you look at the starting lineups, like with the big names in them, you see a lot of Peraza. Some Cabrera, but mostly Peraza. So I'm wondering if that's a. I haven't really seen anybody mention it or seen any reports on it. If Cabrera is still the favorite, if Peraza's firmly in the mix or the favorite, but Peraza is the one getting the third base reps in those lineups that I think matter the most. He's getting more of them, I should say.
Yeah, I haven't seen any reports on it. I know Ben Tidd, since the Yankees preview, wanted Peraza over Cabrera, but he didn't know if they'd actually do it. So he'll be happy if that takes place. One other thing I noticed just going through the lineups there with Stanton out, everyone kept saying Ben Rice is going to DH. Ben Rice has been the backup catcher primarily in spring to Austin Wells, which has been an interesting takeaway to me. I know Trevino, I think, is banged up or something, but like if Rice makes
Trevino's
the team as
on the Reds.
oh, that's right. My bad. I'm an idiot. Yeah. That's right, because they had Austin Jackson potentially backing up. That was a whole disaster. But Ben Rice is getting a ton of playing time at catcher this spring. So he could make the team play catcher, DH, and some first base, which you get him out there that much at that power. I don't know. The average might kill you, but that power potential is interesting at least, too.
I do think a part of it is Rice getting the looks just to get the reps at catcher and stuff. I would be surprised if Rice doesn't get that first shot at DHing unless they sign JD Martinez, which is because they've been linked to, they've reached out to him apparently, or they're which would be. I feel like the Yankees hate Ben Rice for some reason.
Well, if they sign JD, that means that Stanton injury is probably really bad.
Well, Stanton, he's shut down for who knows how long.
He's got a PRP injection. He's going to be down for a little while.
Both elbows, probably. I honestly, it had to be weightlifting, right? Like I know the jokes are made, but I feel like that's the only thing he would do that would hurt both elbows because he's not doing really anything else in the offseason.
That's what you would think, yeah.
Or I blame Bellinger. I think Bellinger took a bat to him for the whole.
Shared some of his special stuff, and Stanton got out of control. Let's go to the Philadelphia Phillies, a team that should be a juggernaut in the NL East, and they're moving Schwarber around the diamond. He's playing first base. They talked about putting him in the outfield. I know they want to get JTR more reps at first base and DH. What are you seeing when you look at the situation in Philadelphia, where they should have a pretty their 228 lineup looks pretty close to what you're going to get.
Yeah, and then there was the one. Was it yesterday? It was probably recently. Oh no, it's today's lineup actually. Which I haven't posted it, so that's why I've seen it, and you probably haven't taken a look yet because we've been podcasting. But where did it go? Where did it go? It caught my attention today. So today was another lineup where they have all the regular. They have every single regular except for Kyle Stevenson in the lineup. Shouldn't be in the lineup. Whatever. So Castellanos is the only one missing, and they put Schwarber at 4, which Schwarber batting fourth would be probably more realistic. Like it would seem like that's a skill set. Schwarber's also batted second a lot, so it's like they're messing with Schwarber everywhere. Like they're moving around the lineup and they're moving around the diamond. So he's batted first twice, second twice, and now fourth once. And I just don't know what that. I don't know what that means. I obviously he's batting top 4, but batting top 2 compared to batting fourth would determine if he's a runs. He's still going to produce runs out of the 4 spot, but probably less, and then more RBI opportunity. So I don't know, but I think if I had to guess, I would still plug him into the 2 spot just because he was such a good leadoff batter for them. At least he does what they want him to do and gets on base a lot if he's not hitting home runs. So I still think he fits that 2 spot a little bit better than 4, but it wouldn't surprise me if they put him at 4, I guess, at the end of the day. Because they seemed like Bohm. They seemed like Alec Bohm batting in the lineup because he's I think he's a good real life hitter, just not great.
He's a good real life hitter for sure.
Just fantasy wise, he just lacks that he can get easily 90 plus RBI.
Very vanilla.
Yeah, that position. It's crazy. I never thought I'd be like, yeah, a guy who hits 270 and 90 RBIs is somebody I don't want on my team.
But he gets like 15 homers and he plays a position that in the ADP, all that fun stuff.
I know.
Let's go to the Pittsburgh. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Pirates here, where Tommy Pham basically takes over a position that many didn't think would happen. Brian Hayes, is he still alive? For now, he is. Second base position with Nick Gonzalez. Like, that's who I want to be there. I've been told I'm foolish for that by some people. What are you seeing break down here? Because it's a little better than the Marlins, but not that much better than the Marlins.
I think there's more security there. I think Andrew McCutchen's going to bat top half of the order more times than not. I think, and he's going to DH most of. I don't think he platoons. I think I've heard someone mention platooning. I don't think he platoons. I don't think they brought him back to be a strict platoon. And last year he didn't platoon like at all. He got some extra days off against righties, sure, but he won't platoon. It gets kind of tough to navigate. The first base thing is weird because there's a lot of Derek Hall. Remember, that was a fun one for a while. Yeah, you're seeing but you're seeing Nick York get run. The lineup on 228. Take away Endy because I don't think Endy's gonna make the team for some reason because they can't let their young guys ever play because why can't Endy play first base? I don't know. But that lineup from 228 where you had Pham, Reynolds, McCutchen, all you're missing is O'Neill, Cruz in there at center field, and then the rest of that, and then Joey Bart at catcher, and you kind of have the starters. I think what I'm getting is I think Triolo can start at first base easily, especially because I think they're expecting it to be like a 2 to 3 week thing. So maybe Derek Hall, who's also getting a lot of first base run with the starters, like when he gets first base starts, it's with starters sometimes. I think he could factor, but I'm not expecting him to necessarily win the job. But that also, like Ross Resource, I just looked it up, also has that as a platoon. I could get behind that. I could see that. I would still personally project Triolo to get it, and just because they seem to like him, especially because he's good. He's like really good defensively as well. But if I was wrong, I could see Ross Resource being what would be right here, and like putting Derek Hall there as a lefty righty platoon could make a lot of sense if they want to platoon first base in the short term. But I don't know. I've been waiting to see if they would use Endy Rodriguez at first base. I'm still watching for that because
there was rumors about it. There was.
But then Endy Rodriguez, he's too good to be a backup catcher. And Joey Bart hasn't played first base. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's moving parts, but the biggest thing is, like you said, Horwitz should be back relatively close to opening day or slightly thereafter. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be just after, maybe a couple weeks after, roughly, give or take. Obviously, setbacks happen, but no setbacks. I think the ETA was like mid-April, late April, the worst. So do you bring up Endy for a few weeks at first? It's almost like the Drake Baldwin discussion all over again, basically.
Totally makes sense, and they're out of the Pirates. All right, let's go to the Padres, where, again, this is the team that last year pretty much put the same lineup out every single day. It was pretty monotonous after a while. But this year, I love their lineup when Tirso's in there because that makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I believe you said today's lineup looks pretty good. where are you at on this Padres situation? 'Cause I think if everyone's healthy, we pretty much know exactly what's going to take place. Outside of maybe catcher, we're still up for, but I think they want Campusano to take the job. They just need it's going to be him and Diaz, and honestly, Diaz might start the season as the starter and give way to Campusano as it goes on.
Yeah, I think they're gonna split regardless. I think Campusano's gonna just fight for that job. I mean, I remember when I was so high on him last year. But real
We
quick,
all
I have to reformat the lineup, but just so you can see today's lineup, because I know you're looking at it live. You scroll down one more, you can
yeah,
see. I just uploaded it real quick. I have to reformat it, so I'm gonna take it off. But this is the lineup I was telling you about where
that's
Tirso's
pretty
batting.
darn. Yeah,
This
that's
seems
pretty close.
legit. It's Arias leading off, Tatis batting second, Merrill third, Machado fourth, Cronenworth fifth, Bogart sixth, Hayward seventh, and again against a righty. So Hayward batting seventh against a righty. Put in I keep thinking I always want to call him CJ Crone. I know it's not Crone.
Jake Cronenworth.
No, the they
Oh, Connor Joe.
Connor Joe. Don't know why. CJ Crone, Connor Joe. Maybe
Gotcha.
it's
That's a
no
heck
idea.
of a mix-up.
Weird. That makes no sense. Always want to call him CJ Crone. No idea. I think it's just the C's. Anyway, Connor Joe. God, that's such a weird. You're right. That makes no sense. The other day, I made a reference to somebody too like that. It was like weird, like a guy that's been retired for like 10 years, and I was like, yeah, he's on the team. And I wasn't, and I don't know, I can't remember it now. It was like Mark Trumbo, I think I was saying, or something weird like that. Made no sense why I was talking about Mark Trumbo in this conversation with somebody. Anyway, back to so Jason Hayward batting seventh against righty. Totally see that. Tirso Ornelas in this lineup is the type of thing I want to see going forward. If this is the lineup we see trotted out more times than not, I can see Tirso Ornelas easily breaking camp. I did look it up. So it wasn't the player of the year. He won a few player of the week awards. I remember because I was looking into him. Like, I just wanted to see more about him because again, I'm like you. I don't follow prospects. So I had to do some homework on him. And yeah, he won some player of the week awards. And so he was, he was a good player, like in the minors, as you would expect. And this team's always been like overly aggressive with their prospects. I mean, actually, through 18 plate appearances in 7 games, he hasn't struck out once yet.
Yeah,
and he's
it's
walked
impressive.
16% of the time. Has a
Yeah.
home run.
If someone else takes his job, I'd be very unhappy. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, who's gonna like? That's the thing. So it would, but this is one of those teams where every year, like I've learned to stop. I've learned to stop fading the Padres and their young guys. I think Ornelas breaks camp. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, let's go to the Seattle Mariners, a team that it's like Victor Robles in the outfield. You got J-Rod and the Rosarans. The outfield's pretty much locked and loaded. The infield's a little different, though. There are some questions like, does Ryan Bliss play second or does Dylan Moore play second? Who plays second? Polanco's back to play third till his knees give out again. You got Crawford at short. Catching Raleigh first base is kind of a toss-up as well, with Rayleigh primarily playing. But what do you see in Seattle?
Yeah, I'd be surprised unless Bliss absolutely sucks, which is possible. I really thought Bliss would be the guy to. It's his job to lose. He's doing well in spring so far. It's a very small sample, and he's batting 308 stolen base, that's the reason why I like him.
His thing, yeah.
He's again, remember the cheap second baseman with stolen base upside? Bliss is that he's in that conversation. And if he's playing every day, he has speed that's like 60 stolen base in the season upside if he played every day. I don't think he would get there. Obviously, that's crazy talk. But like realistically, if you go look at his like the stolen base numbers, that's what he does. He runs. And Dylan Moore is not more than he's a utility guy. I really think they would prefer to keep him that way. He's having an awful spring so far. So again, this is when spring stats might matter. The bigger takeaway might be that the Mariners, both of them have stolen base, so the Mariners are just letting their guys run in spring. So maybe that they realize that they're going to have to manufacture runs this year, so you can have guys running, and they have the players to do it. They have their Rosaranias who might not be efficient but can do it. You have J-Rod. You have if Ryan Bliss makes a team, or if Moore, either one, Moore or Bliss can steal bases. Crawford probably stole a few bases. Robles, we know, steals bases. So I think this team might be one of those like they might have to be aggressive on the base paths. So that could be a fun thing to take away from this too. But yeah, I think I've been pretty vocal about believing Bliss is the guy that's going to take the job and run with it. Bliss did get a start with, and Rowdy Tellez has been getting a lot of run at first base. So I think maybe Tellez makes this team, which I think they signed him to. I think they signed him to a major league contract. Or
Which
no? They signed Rowdy to a major league contract or not?
No, that was minor league.
Yeah, I was curious because he's been playing a lot, and they love platoon. There's another team that doesn't mind platooning and stuff. So I was just curious. Of course, Rowdy has a home run this spring. I mean, he's batting 151, but he has a home run. So I'm always we root for Rowdy around here. Do you know
Oh,
how old Rowdy
we'd love
Tellez
to run.
is?
I'm guessing he's like 29.
He is 29. I
Yeah.
thought he was. I thought he was like 32.
No, he came up so young, and then he just looks like he's a frizzled veteran
Yeah.
for everything he's done for sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just watching, really just watching that, and I think Haniger might maybe play more than we
Dude.
expect, but I'm not. Like, it's not like
I
anything I'm
wrote I
excited
wrote about
about.
Mitch Haniger recently on the negative side of him. Dude hasn't played more than 100 games. Like he's done it 3 times in
Yeah,
his 8 years. Like the dude just doesn't play. So yeah, not too concerned with this overall
Canzone's been
situation.
getting Canzone's been getting some runs, so maybe he's still a thing. Like for more like if he's a thing, it would be a platoon bat getting some run against. But it's the thing. I think he has that weird role where he'll play 4 out of 5 righties, like he won't even, and then never face a lefty. So his playing time against righties wasn't even regular last year, so that could happen again. So stuff like that. Solano, weak side platoon, they've already said that pretty much. So yeah, we're in a good spot for that. Like
For sure. Let's go to the Gigantes where
that's your
the
team. You
out
should know better than I would.
yeah, well the outfield's just gonna be a mess pretty much. Like that's just gonna be rotating around outside. Well, Elliott should play left field, Lee should play center. They want Yaz to play right. I think Mato should play right, and you still have McRae in the minors. I want Jared Encarnacion to play a lot. They kind of want to. They're playing him a ton. They're giving him a chance. I'll say that much. You got infield will be Wade and Fitzgerald and Adames and Chapman and catchers. Yeah, it's pretty much actually locked in more than I expected, all things considered. But what stands out to you when you look at lineups and try to diagnose it farther?
So this is a team in the past that's been very platoon heavy. You know this. This isn't a secret. So I was waiting for them to go get a lefty to be like a platoon partner with Encarnacion or something. So I'm like,
They have that already. It's called Lamont Wade Jr.
well, that's the thing. But Wade plays first as well, so it's one of those things where they still have the DH spot available. I've been very, and my big thing was I'm very anti. Like I don't think Wilmer Flores gets run against righties. They've given it to him here and there, but you've seen it. Like the second they give us a start or two, then they pull the rug from under us. Like, just kidding. He's not actually going to play against righties. So I don't think he's going to be but I think they're going to utilize that DH against righties to give guys like regular days of rest. Like you're going to see Patrick Bailey DH a bunch. I bet you'll see Yaz DH. I think Encarnacion and the former Marlin, I was a big fan of his just because he was so much fun. The dude just crushed baseballs. So I'm rooting for him too. Just from I actually have a couple of his like rookie cards, like just because I went through a phase
He's
of
a
collecting
beast.
cards.
He's
And
a beast.
I'm a fan. So, but yeah, I think he might be the early favorite. If you look at the 3-2 lineups just yesterday, that one felt very full. Like, and he was in it in left field, but still, all you gotta do is put
Well,
him at
Elliott,
DH.
Elliott, Elliott returned today, and he already walked and stole a base in his first at bat.
Yeah, and so if Elliott returns today, obviously you put Elliott back in the outfield. And actually, you know what? Let me look at that lineup. I have it written down here.
Okay.
And Encarnacion was in that one, but it's not a full lineup. But still, I still think Encarnacion, like they also had Wilmer Flores in that lineup as at first base. So
Go away. Go
you put
away.
if you put Lamont way back at first where he belongs, that opens the
Yep.
DH spot, and that's where
Yep.
Gerard Encarnacion can easily DH. So
Yep.
I think Encarnacion will get lefties and some righties. I don't think he's guaranteed righties, obviously, every righty, but he's the type of guy that could easily he could play 6 out of 7 in a given week. He can also play 5 out of 7. So it's like, but he's still a guy that will play more times than not. So if you're looking for cheap power, like he's gonna be the guy you're streaming in out of your lineup all year, probably. In a 15, he could be a great bench streamer, especially if he can gain eligibility, like at first base and stuff. Because then I'll give him first base, corner, outfield. Or does he have? I'm trying to remember which one he has in NFBC. He has. I don't think he has
It's
both of them.
just outfield, I believe.
Yeah. So if he gains first base, which it seems like he really could, like maybe take a month or two, but it seems like he actually could. He's the type of guy that if he's running hot, they're going to leave him in every day. And when he runs hot, he's the type of guy that's going to hit you 3 home runs in a week, type of hot. And when he runs cold, he's going to strike out 15 times in a week. So
yeah, that's what he does. He's gonna be streaky as all get up. But the Giants need that power so bad. This is the Giants fan of me talking right now. Like that bat needs to be in the lineup.
For what it's worth, I think you are going to get him in that lineup more times than not too. So, and that's just from what they're showing us in spring.
My shares will appreciate that. St. Louis Cardinals. Everyone knows my love for Mason Wynn got his first spring training hit today. That was big. He even celebrated it like, thank God it happened. Other than that, though, like he has some outfield platoon situations going on. Obviously, we're watching the catchers, and it feels like Pages is going to get the strong side of that situation. What are you noticing in spring?
So if you look at the very first spring lineup, the very first one, 222, tell me that doesn't look like a full, complete lineup.
That is pretty darn close.
That's
pretty
Win,
sweet.
Donovan, Contreras, Arenado, Newbar 5, Herrera. See, Herrera, they keep talking about Pages. I think it's going to be a 50-50 split. It really seems
That's
that
where
way.
I feel like it's very, very close to 50-50.
Which sucks, but Jordan Walker left the game injured. While we talk, I saw
Got
someone mentioned
hit
it.
by a pitch in the knee. Yep.
Oh, that's painful.
Yep.
So yeah, that could be an issue. But other than that, though, like I think this lineup, I think that 222 lineup is like you can insert whichever catcher. And for those listening, it's going to be Win, Donovan, Contreras. I think Contreras at first base. I'm surprised his ADP hasn't gone up even more. I've been taking him a lot because I think he's one like it's going to be the first year he stays healthy. Like at least
that's the
relative.
hopes. Yes, like his ADP over the last week in OCs is around 70. So yeah,
so he has moved up.
He's creeping up. He's creeping up.
I think I took him in OC as my C1 recently, and it was I think it was around that pick. It was I definitely took him ahead of Will Smith and all those other guys. I think that's already been happening, but even before that was happening, I was like, give me all the Wilson. And I'm okay with. I'll pay up for him. I'll pay up for him as a top 5 catcher. I have no problem. And I don't think anyone else. That's not a hot take. I think that's pretty much where he's headed to, or like it becomes like I think people were having initially it was Cal Raleigh over him. I'm trying to remember how I'm trying to go way back now, and I think Contreras has jumped like the Will Smith, the Cal Raleigh, and I think that's where he belongs ahead of those guys. Where Will Smith is just off my board at this point. I don't trust the health. But yeah, so we'll see. So if Walker is hurt. Victor Scott's probably the winner there for playing time, I would say, because he's already been the guy named like who's fighting for a job. So that might just open it up.
Like Scott should just play over Ciani if I had it my way, but
yeah,
they want Ciani out there. I get it.
This team doesn't do anything that involves helping the young guys grow because they already sent down one of their top pitching prospects.
That's true. That's true.
Quinn Matthews.
Well, like I want to see JC play, but I don't think that's going to happen to start the year either.
Well, not in the outfield. I think
but in the infield, like he should be playing.
I don't know how much Alec Burleson's going to play, man.
Brendan Donovan is so not anything special.
I don't think they're gonna. Like, I don't think I'm wondering if Alec Burleson is guaranteed an everyday role against righties because I feel like
I feel like he's platooning. That's like some of the rumors out there.
He's platooning. But he's a lefty. So is he not? Is he platooning while also not playing every day against righties?
I get you.
Like because I see lineups that he's in and he's not in everyday lineups half the time. Like when you look at like that lineup, remember that first lineup I showed you? You looked at it. He wasn't in it.
And that lineup looks pretty good.
So where does he fit there? Like, do you get rid of him? Like, I don't think he should. I don't think Nolan Gorman should be starting over him. But they seem to love Gorman here in St. Louis.
They want Gorman to play this year. That's why I'm really curious to see how the next couple of weeks pan out because there's been a lot of rumblings of they want Gorman to play. The Burleson stuff has there's been whispers where's he play because he's played all over the field, first base, outfield, DH, but not consistently as you mentioned.
And he hasn't played outfield at all this spring yet.
That changes things. And they said they wanted to play primarily first, but then you have Wilson Contreras. You're not going to sit Wilson Contreras for Burleson. So that's not going to happen.
You could DH Contreras, but then then Gorman? What Gorman is second, and then Donovan. Donovan's not going to. Donovan's
they have depth, but it's not depth you're in love with, if that makes sense. And for fantasy, it's going to become a headache. So I think after this first round of serious cuts / go to the minor league situation, we're going to start seeing some things that hopefully irons out a little bit.
And you would think maybe Lars is center. Lars has started center field twice this spring, but he's not. But it seems like Ciani's their preferred guy there for the glove. If they put Lars in center, that opens up a spot for everybody to coexist. It's a matter of how much they want Ciani to freaking play.
That's true. Yeah, we'll see. This will be a fun one to recap in a week or so to see where things have shaken, especially if Walker's seriously hurt. That can make things.
Oh, then that just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it changes a bunch as well. All right, Tampa Bay Rays, another team we know likes to platoon a lot. But if you look at roster resource and watch the lineups, platoons aren't as much involved this year compared to previous years. We'll see. Pick your poison. But I love Morel, obviously. Where are you sitting on this team? Because it feels like we know who should be the guys playing versus lefties and righties for the most part.
I'm not sold. So somebody sent me a report that Aranda might not be viewed as a platoon bat, which makes sense because they have nobody to platoon him with other than Eloy. But Eloy is not having a good spring. So if Eloy's spring continues to be bad, people have to remember he's a minor league contract guy. He's striking out 42% of the time right now in spring. Not looking great. Could be washed, which is crazy to think he went from being a top hitter, a guy that was top talent that just can't hit anymore. But that's another discussion. So I'm surprised if Curtis Mead doesn't make this team, because if Curtis Mead makes this team, now that's another righty bat. They need righty bats, and that's a righty bat that can platoon with guys like Brandon Lau, Brandon Lau can't stay healthy. So platooning was a way to keep him not only producing the best they could possibly produce, but also keeping them healthy. So I think that would be a way to find Lau days off. Caballero, the fact that, like, I'm looking at roster resource, Caballero is going to play against lefties. There's no chance they're not platooning Walls or Lau. Like, they have too many lefties, and this team is, like you said, they're so platoon happy to not project a righty bat that is serviceable and a good defender to play the middle infield somewhere. It's a surprise to me. And I think they've put Caballero in the outfield this year. Let me see. I think they have. Apparently, I can't spell Caballero. Whatever. Jose, there it is. CAB. They put him at shortstop, third base, right field.
I don't. Oh, they do have one.
Top,
okay.
Very top lineup. Very top lineup.
Yep, just saw that.
So they have put him in the outfield. He's on, but I think I made a note in the notes like he's played outfield like one time, and it was like 2023. So I don't think they want him in the outfield, right? So you bring up Curtis Mead, put him in, and you can put, and between Mead and Caballero, you have your middle infield on against lefties right there because Mead could play second, third, and they could mess with the DH a little bit, put Morel at DH, move somebody out. They can find way. My point is that I don't think Lau's playing every day regardless. So platoon, I think they really want to platoon him. And I don't think Walls is good enough to be an everyday player, but maybe they don't have a choice until Kim gets back. So, and then when Kim gets back, Walls turns into a platoon bat probably or something.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that it looks steady, but I don't trust it. It's like quicksand. You don't know what's gonna pull you in and sink you until you step on it. I feel like that's what's happening here. People are getting too comfortable, and it's not gonna happen. Like these guys someone's platooning. I think Josh Lowe might be safe among some of these names, and DeLuca I think is safe.
Yeah,
I think
like half the lineup is pretty safe.
I think Morel might be safer than usual.
I think Diaz very safe.
We know Diaz and Caminero are safe. That's the thing.
I just pull up like I think Diaz, Lowe, as long as Lowe's healthy, I think he's relatively safe. Healthy, like Caminero, Josh Lowe, even like so Lau and Lowe, I think are both pretty safe.
Well, the thing about Lau is that they've platooned him so much over the years, and he always gets hurt.
Like looking at the roster they want to start the season with, like is it Caballero? I don't think it is. I just now maybe when Kim comes back, Walls can move over there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Eloy doesn't make the team, I don't think I would project Mead makes the team
right now. Eloy is so bad.
That's what I'm getting at. So if Eloy doesn't make the team, because I don't think he does, given how things are going, you put Curtis Mead in there. Curtis Mead can play second and third. You have Caballero that can play shortstop and second. So you have guys that can platoon with Brandon Lau types. That's what I was getting at. So that's why I don't think Brandon Lau is not platooning. I think he is going to platoon because it gives him that extra rest to stay healthy, which is a big deal to them. But B, because they have options to do it with them, and they love platooning guys. That's all. And they can even put Morel. They can move Morel around if they. I know he's going to be the outfield primarily, but if they want to move him to second base or third base because he not that he's good, but they have ways to screw with they have ways to screw around with things. I don't think anyone's safe outside of a handful of guys, and I think Yandy, Caminero, and DeLuca, just because of defensive purposes, I think those are your safest guys. With Lau, I think Lau and Lowe are mostly safe, but I think they're going to sit regularly. Both, at least Brandon Lau will sit regularly versus lefties as a way to keep them healthy. I can't stress that enough. I know he's not. I know there's no clear projectable platoon bat for him, but Caballero easily, the glove is so good he could play shortstop or second, or they could put him at shortstop, move Walls a second, give Lau a day off because Lau's going to sit to rest anyway.
It's true.
I don't know. I see paths to play. If I had a site to project playing time and lineups against lefties, I would definitely have Lau in a platoon.
If only.
All
right.
If such a thing existed. Yes.
Let's head to the Texas Rangers here, who have one of the best lineups in all of baseball. Like I keep saying, they
lost a big piece today.
Adelise he's getting an MRI, and the fact he went straight to the MRI is not a good thing in my mind.
And he's not a guy who I feel like every time he's been injured, he doesn't ever get MRIs. He's too tough for an MRI.
He bounces back and keeps playing, and a lot of these early side injuries, he was kind of like, we'll just let it go, and he's back in a few days. This is going straight to the MRI machine, which not great. So we'll see how that pans out. But what are you seeing so far with Texas?
I was wondering if that's why, because the initial lineup, I was like, why is Alex? I got the lineups early today. I had time to, and he was batting ninth. I'm like, that's weird. Why are they putting? And then the news broke. I'm like, oh, maybe they were putting there just to maybe as a placeholder because maybe they realized that he was hurt and they wanted to see how he felt during warmups or something. Because they had him at ninth today, and that's just he hasn't bat lower than fourth or fifth all. It was weird. So yeah, that caught my attention. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Evan Carter. just because I was in on him last year and the burning me after being I was out. I bought in my most expensive leagues, and I should have stayed out because obviously he sucked. But I know the back is a concern, but I think I still buy the talent for Carter. And Carter as a whole, let me pull this lineup back up. He's been batting, I think, almost like middle lineup. I know Langford's not in, so that's hard to see where he's gonna land. We've seen him bat. The one lefty he started against, he played center field and batted 8th. So I think this is a way of telling us, like, hey, Carter might not be an everyday player against lefties, but I don't think there's a strict platoon. He might still get some run, and when he does, you expect him to move down. So that would be. I still would project a platoon more likely than not for Carter, but at least I don't think it's gonna be strict. I think he'll get some run against righties, lefties, but against righties, he's been batting top 3 every time, no matter the lineup. And today, I think he's batting 4th, so that ruins my top 3 thing. He's batting 5th today, and that's with Young in Peterson. Still no White Langford, so he could bat as low as 6th if they still, because I still think, or they could flip flop Young, put Young batting 6th and Langford 3rd, because that way, well, no, because they have back to back lefties. That's weird. They would definitely split the lefties up. That's probably why Young is batting 3rd today, because Young's. I think Wyatt Langford's gonna bat 3rd when he comes back, and then Jock being Jock Jams. I think Jock Jams is going to screw Carter. I think Carter ends up batting closer to 6th in this lineup because you'll have Young batting 5th while what's his face misses time. If what's his name Garcia misses time, but if not, then it gets real crowded. But in a good way. This is like one of the better lineups in baseball. But then there was those rumors of Semien possibly not leading off against all righties. So and then the days off with Semien. So that's a guy I've been I'm out. I'm just out. I'm not. I know he's like the Iron Man, and I know I don't really think he's gonna get hurt. But if the team wants to manage his playing time on top of managing playing time, they want to do like other stuff, like the rest and stuff. I couldn't think of the word. They want to rest him and whatnot. Like that just scares me.
Management.
That word, yeah, those words. If they want to do that to a guy like that, he's a guy that needs volume. I look at like, if you look at his projection, the 100 runs I expect him to get, that's fantastic. I think that's still very realistic. But if you look at Semien and the rest of the skill set, I'm like, I feel like I could just get that later. The projections are like, okay, 80 to 90 runs. I think 100 runs, if he's getting 150 games, he's getting 100 runs, right?
Well, but I know Semien has to play, like you're saying. Like we know that for a fact. So if he's getting rest, it's obviously going to hurt things.
No, I know, but even if he takes a step back, I think 100 runs, but you're getting a guy with 100 runs, 80 RBIs, still solid, right? But the 23 home runs and the 9 stolen bases, I feel like as long as I address runs in RBI other places and batting 250-ish, like the rest of it's so, like, I feel like Jonathan India, like I keep bringing Jonathan India up as a comp, not because I think India is a fair comp, but I look at India and I'm like, 250 batting average. That's pretty much what he hits like every year. 15-ish home runs. Okay, fine. I'm taking a hit on 10 home runs, but he could steal the same amount of bases, 10 plus, 10 to 15. Both of them could land in that range. And as health being India's, that's built into his price. But if you look at India leading off, if he manages to spike a 145, 150 game season, are the runs going to be really that different? If you look at the projections, it's the plate appearances being about 100 off. I would assume like if you bumped, and again, that's a big if, and there's a reason why India goes like 150 picks later, probably, or 100 picks later. But India just comes to mind as like this type of player. Like his play appearances are all projected south of 600. But if you get him closer to 650, you're getting a guy with very comparable projections. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. So that's why I'm out on Semien, because I just tend to wait on India or a guy like India and get something close enough while getting somebody I like more earlier that should easily surpass what you know what I mean, like the combo of those two players should easily surpass the gap that's being made between Semien and India. Maybe I'm too bullish on India. I can admit that. Like I'm not saying that's not the case, but when you
I like him quite a bit. And
look at the projections outside of the power.
Later, fine. There's a lot of them, so I get it.
And I think that's the other part is like if I miss on second base, I feel like we just talked about 5 guys that are probably on every waiver wire that I'm just like, I'll take a shot on this, like Tyro, Bliss if he's starting. Like there's just so much second base depth. I understand it's weak at the top, but it's probably the deepest position in fantasy. And we have guys like Edmund who are gaining it. Most likely going to gain, I should say.
Sounds good to me. All right, Toronto Blue Jays, another team like we're hoping Bichette leads off. They're kind of fluctuating between a couple options there in Toronto, but I think it's Bichette's position to lose. What else are you noticing with this team? Because like that 3-3 lineup least the top half looks pretty solid.
And that's so I want to see Varsho in one of these lineups because Varsho is the wild card because they were batting him second, but then Santander wasn't in, then Santander came back, and Varsho's been smacking the ball this spring. So although he might not be ready to play the field, I don't see why he can't DH for them. I know it's kind of like crowded as a DH because obviously they probably want Santander to DH more than anything. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, I do think Varsho probably hits closer to 5'6", Jimenez 6'7", and I thought Jimenez was going to have an outside chance of hitting top 2. I really did. It was such a gut feel, but Bichette came out and even said he wants to lead off. I think so. I think they're going to give him a shot too, and it makes sense. I don't think Jimenez is a great option to lead off necessarily. It was more so Jimenez leading off because I was fading the whole Springer leading off against righties. I just didn't see it. I didn't think he was good enough to do it last year. He kind of lost a step in that role. So I thought Jimenez could easily come in and be like a top 2 hitter against righties. And that still very well could be the case. But the more you look at this lineup, they've been, after Jimenez was batting exclusively top 2, Varsho joined the lineup. And then Varsho took that 2 spot. How much of that is getting Varsho reps? How much of that is actually part of the plan, right? And then they brought Santander in. Santander's batted 3rd and 5th. So he's batting 3 through 5 probably. And he's batting, 4th and 3rd. So he's batting top four. So now it's getting a lot less likely for Jimenez to crack that top 2. And that was kind of the thing I'm watching. I do think Bichette leads off. I want to see who lands in that 2 spot. If it's going to be if Varsho gets a shot again, because we've seen him get a shot in the past, or if it's going to be Vladdy second, like kind of what we saw 3-3, the top 5 there. Insert Varsho towards the top. Because you actually that 3-3 lineup is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
The top 6, I should say, are pretty solid. Yep. So if you add Varsho, that makes 7.
Yeah.
And then Clement makes 9, but Clement was hit in the face by a ball. I guess he's fine.
Yeah, he's today.
So really, if you look at that 3-3 lineup, you have everything. Everything but Varsho in there. So I want to see one of those lineups with Varsho, and I want to see who wins that other job because I know Varsho would play center if he's healthy enough. But if he's not healthy enough, are we going to really get? I guess Nathan Lukes, or I think David Schneider is going to be a bench roll guy anyway. But it's going to be interesting.
Schneider gives them the utility options. People are kind of excited on Lukes. I've also seen.
I thought for sure we were going to get Rodin, but I don't think
that's what I was going to say. Rodin, I've heard a lot of love for as
well. Well, the beat reporters were saying that he was going to get every chance out of camp, and then don't forget they have Loper Fido still. They went out. Obviously, they went out and got Miles Straw in an attempt to get Sasaki. It didn't work out, so now they have Straw. So Straw could easily be a bench option for them, especially as a defensive replacement / like weak side platoon guy if they really wanted him to do that. I know that's what roster resource is showing, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I think Straw's just could be bench fodder and defensive replacement type of thing. I don't think he's gonna have an impact role. But regardless, there's a lot of and they have Will Wagner sitting there. And I would argue I would rather see him at third base, but I don't even think he's played third base this spring. Let me see. I don't think he's played. I think he's been playing exclusively first base. Oh, he did play third base. Okay. Because I know it's been a lot of first base for Will Wagner. So that's the thing. So third base, I think it's Ernie Clement's job. It's almost like what they did with IKF last year, where they're just putting the defense ahead of the offense. Because Clement, my big fate of him wasn't the glove. It was just like, dude, the guy's not even a 700 OPS guy. Like, why is he starting every day for our team as a regular? And that was my case against him. But apparently, it doesn't matter. It looks like he's the starting third baseman entering the year. So that was my first loss of trying to project forward because I'm trying to be a little more aggressive. But then I remember this team is the same team that trotted out IKF as a starting player for them last year. So I should have known better.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. We'll see. They do some sketch things, but all in all, they only need one position. So that's the team's looking pretty good considering they had nothing going for them before. Stuff. So all in all, that roster, like we talked about, that 3-3 throw Varsho, that's not that bad overall. All right, let's finish it up. Washington Nationals, everybody. This lineup I love. I love this team.
So much fun.
It's a young lineup, great for fantasy, tons of appeal. What's standing out to you so far?
Well, what stands out to me is that apparently I've turned into a James Wood guy, and I wasn't in on him early. The price was so hard but then I started doing some OCs, and I'm not sure if I have him in both OCs, but I got him in the last one, and I'm like, I really like him and Cruz at their prices. Cruz being a lot cheaper too, but I think Cruz is about to move up because he's having a decent spring last I looked, and he's running, which they're all going to run. I think they're all going to run crazy.
This team ran a ton last year, so they should again this year.
So James Wood is I feel like Cruz offers a similar ceiling, but way more floor. And maybe it's just like my weird brain thinking that because it shouldn't probably be that way. Whereas I feel like Wood is the ceiling play. And because we saw it last year, I mean, the dude, the power, he reminds, he's lanky, tall, he hits the crap out of the ball. He's one of those guys. He's 6'7". This is freaking O'Neal Cruz type of size, it's just a bats lefty. It just reminds me of that, and that's a lazy comp. That's why I'm not going to I don't want to use it, but so far in spring, not the power. He just got back in the lineups though, so we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, I think we see him bat third most days. Maybe he moves down against righties because they are pretty lefty heavy here.
Mm-hmm.
But this team's also come out. We talked about it. Jose Tena is not going to probably start because they've talked about Paul DeJong being the starting third baseman, and the defense would explain it, man. I didn't realize how bad Tena was at third base last year.
It's rough.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that bad. Like I got that was just lazy analysis. But when you sign a guy for $1 million, you don't assume they're going to come in and start. So that's probably why it took me having to hear it from the broadcast. I was like, oh man, I don't. Yeah, that's surprising. So yeah, I think this lineup, as you see it with Abrams, Cruz, Wood, Lowe, Bell, I think those are your top five. I think Garcia bats in the bottom half of the order, and platoons. Like as much as they just this team hates Luis Garcia the way Ron Washington hates Rengifo. You know what I mean? It's just, and the reason why I say I think Garcia platoons, I'm not sure it's gonna be a strict platoon necessarily, but I mean they have Ahmed Rosario, they have Alex Call for the outfield. They have options that they can easily just slot in. So if they move Alex Cole to the outfield, they also have what's his face. If they decide to keep Juan Yepez. So if they say they keep Yepez over Tena, because maybe they don't want to keep the lefty, they just want a bunch of righties because they have so many lefties in the lineup. They can have 4 righties on the bench and they can platoon 3 of them because this team was a platoon happy team. Jacob Young has elite defense, but maybe I think he should play every day, honestly. But because the defense should help him keep in the field. But I could easily see a path to them platooning their lefty guys, but Ahmed Rosario being the main threat to Luis Garcia, obviously. But even during the breakout,
I hate hearing that. That's just not. It doesn't make me happy hearing you
well,
say that.
Luis Garcia, even during his breakout year last year, I ran that. I did the number. I did it manual, so because like I might not be the caveman you are, Bubba, but I'm not the savant that Bloomfield is either. I feel like I bridged the gap. Like
you do bridge the gap.
They're trying to like how they try to do the missing link thing. They still haven't quite linked us to apes. I'm the missing link between Bloomfield and you, Bubba. That's my role here. So I did it by hand, but I went and looked. I did all the homework on them. And on the games, he was available. His platoon, he was still only starting against 41% of this Luis Garcia. I know how much Zach wants to make sure I say names because he's really big on that. So I make sure I mention Luis Garcia's name. But in all seriousness, Luis Garcia, he only started against 41% of lefties in the second half that he was available to face. So that baked in injury, so there's no skewed numbers. So 41% of lefties, it's not nothing, but it's not a lot. So you're looking at a guy that's going to bat bottom half of the order and platoon probably still a good amount. He's going to be good. He's going to run a bunch. He's still going to be solid, but I just feel like the price tag's getting hard to. He's like what's like Josh Lowe and him are going in that range where if you think they platoon, it's kind of hard to take them there when there's guys that don't platoon going behind them with similar skill sets. Like I have to look at ADP, but you get my point. Like, and I actually took Luis Garcia for the first time this year in a draft where he fell, and then after taking him, I was like, yeah, it's all right because I hate the idea of like, well, now I got to make sure I have a guy that if they face 3 lefties in a week, am I guaranteed he's going to sit against 2 of them probably, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's frustrating to try to time that and figure that out. But he'll pinch hit. But also with platoons these days, is he likely to get pitch hit 4 late in the game as well and lose at bats? So it's like you lose at bats in multiple ways as a platoon bat these days.
Yeah, and that's a conundrum that I'm not happy to hear you say. I can't disagree, obviously. You've been pounding the drum on that one since they signed him, and I've been fighting back with you on that. But it makes sense. I get it.
It's frustrating. Well, it's frustrating because I don't understand why they feel this need to do this to Garcia. I don't get it. And what was the eye opener was for me when I finally looked into it was the fact that he was having a great year. Garcia was breaking out in every way, and they still platooned him. I don't understand what more. So in my eyes, there's no more he can do to earn playing time. If he played 140 games, 528 play appearances, like he could easily play 100. He could play more games, obviously, if he faces some more lefties. But the counting stats, even in his breakout year, 70 RBIs and 58 runs, and that's what scares me. I know the team's better around him. so he could still probably hit closer to 90 RBIs, best case scenario type of thing, especially hitting behind Wood and all those guys, Low and all that. But I'm afraid of so you have questions about playing time, you have questions about the counting stats more. I think the power and speed are gonna be fine. He'll be a 2020 guy type of thing. But then so it's like it's really hard. I mean, I'm having a hard time justifying him at cost because of the questions on like two out of the five categories in Roto, and playing time being kind of iffy. So I mean, maybe he'll fall. Maybe I could talk people into letting him fall, and then I'll be gotcha, and I scoop him up. But it's just the early cost. The early cost was more. I think he actually has fallen a little bit. I haven't checked. I haven't checked OC ODP, ODP ADP. But yeah, he's just that guy that I have probably the most concern about, like just based on playing time, not talent wise.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. All right, we did it. We did it. All 30 teams discussed.
Only took 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we might break this up into an AL NL next time around, just for everyone's sake. But
no, man, it's tis the season, bro.
Yeah,
if there's ever a time,
and I think there might be a little more clarity next time we chat as some of these guys get sent away and other things take place. But final thoughts before we head out of here on this kind of marathon reunion, talking all 30. This is your wheelhouse, so
yeah.
Any final thoughts? It's March 4th. We have a couple weeks till Japan and about 3 weeks till the USA opening day. A lot's going to change.
Final thoughts. No, just if there was ever a chance or a way to get back on the microphone with you, it was a 2.5 hour marathon because I'm making up for lost time, Bubba.
I text Bloomfield about at the 2 hour mark. I said, Kurland's back. We've hit 2 hours. We have 4 teams left to go.
That's accurate.
Yeah,
that's accurate. Yes. And now I'm going to go and crash out and do nothing. Not crash out. I forgot. It's like a different meaning these days. I'm just going to go crash on the couch and relax, like recover from sitting here as if I did something hard for 2 hours.
Yep. I get it. Trust me. I get it.
I know. You podcast more than me by a long shot these days. Anyway,
we'll have Kurland back in the coming weeks. But for now, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Mike_Kurland. Go check out his sheet. It is pinned to his Twitter profile. And again, you can update it. You can do all kinds of different things to it, or he'll update it for you. It depends on which one you keep. So have all the fun stuff there. You can find me on Twitter at BDentric. Go check out Breakfast with Bubba. Appreciate it. And the Bubba and the Bloom Patreon as well. But until next time, this was Bench with Bubba, episode 749. Catch y'all later.